Hello, good evening. Hopefully all the audio is running as it should be. There isn't any kind of echo or anything like that. Apologies for the delay in getting started. It's been 2 weeks since I last streamed, but for the first time in a while, it's been 2 weeks since I last filmed anything either. So I kind of had to make sure everything was set up and working again because it's been a little while since I've done that. But thank you all for being here. Didn't expect to see so many of you right off the bat. Hope you all had a good weekend. Let me know if the audio is working okay, because that's consistently been the biggest issue on these streams in the past. But I think everything should be good to go. See, there are a couple of... Ryan, good to see you. I'm doing well. How are you? Audio sounds good. Awesome. Lovely mini. By the way, I think it was you. So someone posted something in the community tab, which I forgot to pull up. I think it was Minnie, about dressing up to go see the film. That was really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I haven't seen the movie yet, so do not spoil it. Well, when are you planning to see the movie? Basically, yeah, was you? Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. I can pull it up if you really want me to, but it's in the community tab, so everyone can go see it. There also might be a bit more background noise than normal tonight. Not much I can do about it. It's raining here, and the cars on the road are louder than normal because of that. So, I am a little worried that I have 2 audio inputs running for some reason, so I might have to look into that. There's no echo, right? As long as you guys aren't getting an echo, it's probably fine. I was testing out something for a future stream, and it may have duplicated inputs. But yeah, so I am going to be talking about the film tonight because it came out over the weekend, last week, and I went to see it over the weekend, so I want to give my review of it. For anyone who doesn't want that to be spoiled, I completely understand. So when the time comes, I will let you know that we're going to be talking about the film, and it will probably include spoilers because there's no plot twist in the film, right? You can't give away the ending. It's a concert film. You kind of know how it goes, but at the same time, there are little details that I'm sure we'll talk about that you wouldn't want to know about before you see it for yourself. However, you end up being able to do that. Hopefully there will be a physical release. So because of that, I'll probably throw up a graphic image of the film poster, and whenever that's up, you can just mute the stream and step away for a bit because we'll be talking about the film, and then come back once that's been taken down, and you'll know that way you can avoid any spoilers. So obviously those in the chat, try to respect that as much as possible. It's a little hard because it's like, 1, it's a concert film, and 2, the film's not showing in theaters anymore, so it's kind of finished its run. So it's harder to not spoil things in the same way, but I understand wanting to kind of have something fresh going into it whenever you are able to watch it. Let me just, as per always, scroll back a little bit here and see if there's any interesting chats I missed. Wasn't a fan of the Clancy tour, was in Australia, so seeing the movie was insane. The crowd was crazy, not to mention I sang the whole time. Tyler's vocals were flawless. Yeah, very good production on the show. I hope they got their $50. I think they did. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think they got at least $50. Can I find the digital, I assume you mean remains, the digital remains on eBay? And besides the regular album, what else was in it? Are you talking about Breach or Clancy? Because they're slightly different. Obviously, Breach had a whole song in it. I highly doubt you can find it on eBay. I don't know really how digital distribution or reselling works. I don't think that's much of a thing. I don't know, though. Certainly never tried to buy something like that. And I would be wary of trying to buy something like that because it's a download. You would be downloading the digital album from the seller. Could very easily lead to a scam and a virus link, in my mind. Again, I don't even know if that's a feature you can utilize on eBay. I don't know how that works, but my guess would be no, you can't do that. Apple. I was curious, is the digital remains on eBay? Oh, same question. What do you think the Y in the Clancy means? We see it a lot in the Shy Away music video representing the lights. They might represent birds, since one way talks about flying, also Isle of Flightless Birds. Oh, I see. Like the graphic that they used for the Y, the text of the Y. Is that what you're talking about? I always assumed it meant birds. Yeah. I did a video, either a video or a short, kind of analyzing the album art of Clancy. And I wasn't the only one. Everyone was. There's a number of hidden clues and things in there. And that was one of the things I talked about and went through, is sort of the text, the lettering of Clancy on the album art, and sort of what the shape of those letters could represent, right? The A kind of looks like a car, the way it's formed. The Y looks like birds, I think. The L kind of looked like a bed. The N looked like a dangerous Ben symbol. All that kind of stuff. So one of the loud cars is probably Tyler blasting his music. Yeah, most likely. What is your top 10 21 Pilot songs and why? Let's steal a bit of ranking. Well, I did do a stream ranking all of them, so that would be the most accurate version of my top 10, right? Right off the top of my head, not looking at all of them and comparing them all to one another and ranking them in a full manner like I did there. I think Ode to Sleep would probably be number one. Here, I'll give you my top three, roughly. And disclaimer, this may vary. This may be different to what I said in that ranking video, because it's a different kind of circumstance. But I think it was like Ode to Sleep, Bandito, and Drag Path are top three, let's say. Certainly three of my favorites. There might, again, if I pull them all up, I might change that around a bit, but that's roughly what we're looking at. So, but yeah, how many of you went to see the movie? How many of you made it? And how many of you are waiting to still see the movie at a future date, if possible? Because I know we don't know for sure if there is going to be a digital release of this film. I certainly hope there is. I would love to own a Blu-ray disc of it. But did many of you get to actually go and see it in your local theater? Did you go with friends? Was that a whole experience? There certainly were. I didn't really dress up a ton because I don't have a ton of clothing merch from 21 Pilots. It's mostly, pretty much exclusively physical music and stuff like that, vinyls and CDs. So I didn't dress up, but a lot of people in my theater did. Saw it on Thursday. It was awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to look at. It's a bit of old news now. It was a bit fresher yesterday when I was planning to actually stream. But I wanted to look at a couple of chart things real quick. I got to go twice. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to go twice in that weekend, right in that period from Wednesday to Sunday or however long it was playing. But if it were still playing this week, I would probably go again. I want the band to make an album for kids like No Rhymes, because they each have kids. No Rhymes? Is No Rhymes a band? What are you talking about? But both audiences were amazing and energetic. I loved it. I went with my dad first and went with my friends the second time. That's awesome. So the movie got a popcorn bucket. Well, that's great. I looked around for a popcorn bucket. Didn't find one. Very tragic. Would have loved to have one. But yeah, no, they didn't. They seemed somewhat inconsistent in their distribution of the popcorn buckets. Did anyone recognize you? No. I mean, I'm not surprised, right? Like, I don't know how many viewers there are where I live, but I saw it on Friday. Went with my dad and his roommate. Handed out bracelets. It was so cool. That's really cool. That's awesome. My whole family went on Wednesday and Saturday. We all dressed up and had a great time. Great. I'm sorry I wasn't clear. I want 21 Pilots to make an album with nursery rhymes. Oh, I see. That could be cool. 21 Pilots lullabies, something like that. I bought the popcorn bucket. I still have it. I'd assume so. Isn't that the point? Do some people throw those buckets away, like the collector ones? Yeah, my theater didn't have any popcorn buckets. Yeah, it's tragic. I wonder if they just didn't think there was going to be enough turnout for this film, so they didn't invest in having enough to distribute them to all the theaters. I don't know, but I honestly would be laughing my head off if he made lullabies on his little ukulele. It could happen. Yeah, why would they throw them away? I don't know. Especially because they cost a lot more, I think. I've actually never bought a collectible popcorn bucket because I basically never buy popcorn when I go to see a film. So I most of the time completely ignore them. I would have gotten one at this time because it's 21 Pilots. You know, how often is that going to happen? $13. But so it was $13 with popcorn, or $13 just for the bucket and then you paid for popcorn on top of it? I have no idea how that works. But I mean, $13 isn't terrible, right? So it's not too bad. How many 21 Pilots cats have you been to? I've only been to one. Do you mean concerts? $13 just for the bucket. Okay. Still, it's not terrible. Because you could probably get it and not get popcorn, right? The buckets seem exclusive to Cinemark theaters. Oh, really? I went to an AMC. So I don't know if any AMCs had them at all. But I've been to 2 21 Pilots concerts. Yeah, just 2. So it was the Icy tour and the Clancy tour. That was my first time getting popcorn. I'm not really a popcorn person because it makes me cough. Fair. Yeah, they're only in Cinemark. Oh, I see. I didn't know that. If I'd known that, I would have seen if there was a Cinemark around just to get one, honestly. How were those shows? Icy and Clancy? Fantastic. Yeah, they were. I mean, I do wish I had been able to go to the Bandito or the Breach tours, because both of them had the burning car kind of pyrotechnics, and that was really cool, and especially because Trench is my favorite album. To have been able to go to the Bandito tour at that time, I think would have been fantastic. But yeah, no, they were both great. I really liked the sort of fireplace medley that they did in the Icy tour with the band. I think that was a really good use of the backing band, which I wasn't fully on board with having, because I really liked the way they performed, just the two of them on stage. But I think there were things that they were able to do with that backing band that they weren't able to do in other contexts, like having that kind of acoustic set huddled around that campfire and playing those songs. I think that was really good. And I really, really liked the opening with Good Day into No Chances. That performance of No Chances was fantastic. Trying to think what else. They didn't play Redecorate at my show. I think that was more of the Takeover tour than the Icy tour. Would have loved to see that. But yeah, it was great. And then the Clancy tour was awesome, obviously. Pretty similar set list to in the film. They hadn't released The Line at that point, so they didn't play that one. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things I liked about the Clancy tour are similar to things I liked about the film, and just in talking about the set list in particular. But for the Clancy tour, I was actually down in the pit, whereas the Icy tour, we were way back up in the nosebleeds, basically almost as far as you could get. And that was good in its own right, because you kind of got to see the full spectacle of the stadium. But being in the pit certainly was a good experience. We were right next to Tyler's B stage. So if I wanted to be annoying, I probably could have whacked him with my hand. But yeah, so that was really cool, because we were right up on the balcony of that B stage. Which did mean once he got on that riser and it went up, we very much had to crane our heads upwards to actually see him. But I'm so sorry. I feel really bad because I use voice dictation because I'm actually blind, and sometimes I don't look the messages over. Oh no, you're good. You're all good. I'm just trying to decipher, but it's not actually a problem. I do not have any pets. No. My cousin went to Blurry Phase and Bandito tours. Very nice. Clancy tours with the best set list. I think the Clancy tours set list was very well put together, and certainly the transitions from one song to the next were fantastic. There are songs which I would love to see live that they didn't play, but that doesn't necessarily mean that adding those in would have actually made the set list, holistically speaking, better. I just would love to see Ode to Sleep live or Bandito live, fairly local, right? Especially, I mean, Bandito, I've seen videos of the performances of that song from the Bandito tour, and it looks fantastic, right? I would love to experience that live. But I don't know where you would have fit that into the Clancy set list, right? And, they put it into Paladin Straight, and Josh sang it, and that was fantastic. It was one of the best parts of the Clancy tour. Was that segment. Am I planning on going to any of the festivals? I don't think so. None of them are really convenient to where I'm located. And yeah, so if they were doing a proper tour this year, maybe I would make it. If the Breach tour was continuing, but I want them to play Legend live. Interesting. Legend, not one of my favorites, but that's fair. I think, did they never play that song live? I want to see Ode to Sleep live so bad. Yeah, that would be great. And Isle of Flightless Birds live. Thought the LA Breach was amazing. The transitions, lighting, movement around the audience, but Innings was so great for a festival. Fair enough. They have played Legend live. Yeah. There are also regional best songs that I would love to see live. But what can you do? Became a fan too late in history for that. So. Well, speaking of innings, since we're on that topic, I kind of wanted to take a look, if for no other reason than just for my own personal interest and curiosity, at the set list that they've been using for the festivals. I guess if some people are planning to go to the festivals and they don't want the set list to be spoiled, spoilers, step away for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know if people actually care about that, but if you do, about to look at what someone published as the Innings Festival set list on Twitter. I had a hard time finding this on Reddit for some reason. So I'm somewhat unsure if this is actually 100% official, because I just wasn't seeing as many listings of the set list as normal. But this, from what I can tell, this seems to be a pretty reliable collection of the songs that were played at that show. But before I flip to it, I'll just make sure everyone's caught up. So if I was there for Innings, I would kill to see Trapdoor live. Hope they do small shows again like they did for Clancy Tour. That would be cool. Or like the Takeover Tour. Where can you listen to or buy Regional Best? YouTube is the easiest place. I bought one of those knockoff CDs of Regional Best just to have it. So that's often how I listen to it. But I think someone took the audio files that are publicly available and just burnt a CD of it. I don't have pets. YouTube is where you can listen. You can have to get custom vinyl. Yep. There's some songs uploaded to Spotify, but they get taken down often. Yeah. The Music Dude. Greetings. Good to see you. SoundCloud. Yep. You can find a lot of their unreleased stuff, including an old SoundCloud profile of theirs from the original lineup with, I think, Time to Say Goodbye, Slow Town, maybe Lovely, and Trees, something like that. So SoundCloud is definitely a good place to look for a lot of that stuff. But looking at the Innings Festival set list, this is what we are looking at. And the reason why this is notable, the reason why I wanted to pull this up and talk about it, is because there are a number of new additions to the set list that were added on after the Breach tour that I think it's very good that they added them, let's just say. So I'm just going through start to finish. We open with Overcompensate, then we have the Contract Sender Mass. That's new. The third song on the set list is very interesting. Into Shy Away, Heathens, Next Semester, and then we've got One Way, which I would have loved to see live. Still would love to see live. That's great. I'm glad they're playing it live, even if I don't get to see it, right? I think that's a song which should translate really well into a live format. Sort of mashed up with a Stolen Dance cover. Tear in My Heart, Jumpsuit with City Walls, and then Nico and the Niners, Heavy Dirty Soul Drum Show. Raw Fear, which... Was Raw Fear always this far down? And now I'm blanking on what the Breach set list was like. I know they played Raw Fear, but I thought it was a bit earlier in the set. And then Drag Path, which I don't know. Did anyone ever think that was going to be played live a couple months ago? That's pretty cool. The Doubt demo, again, another one which I wish I had seen live. I wish it had been in the film as well. I understand why it wasn't, because they hadn't released it at that point, but that would have been really cool to see. Ride, gotta have that. Tally, Seven Nation Army as another cover, and then Stressed Out, and then Trees. So I think it's a pretty good set list, or at least has a number of songs which I would love to hear played live. I certainly wish they had brought Downstairs into kind of the typical rotation for their shows, but Raw Fear was pretty close to the beginning. Okay, yeah, I wasn't misremembering that. The Blind Haunter, I do not have pets, and my non-existent pets are called Roger and Charles. And your uncle just bought you the Regional Best CD. That's awesome. Killed to Hear Center Mass Live. Raw Fear was the third. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I only just realized City Walls ends just like Heavy Dirty Soul opens. Wow. Were you just listening to it? You just noticed? The strobe lighting is too much for Doubt. I have to cover my eyes. That's fair. I really like the new cover. So it does seem like there are more covers here than they have had on previous set lists for Clancy and Breach, I suppose. But perhaps that makes sense for festival shows. I don't really know. I haven't really been to many festivals like this, so. But yeah. Anyway, that was it. I just wanted to look at the set list. I thought it was cool. I'm glad they're playing songs like One Way live and things like that as well. I also wanted to take a look at some news from, I guess, over the weekend. Kind of came in over the weekend / yesterday. So it would have been fresher if I had actually been able to go live yesterday. But it's still fairly fresh. I really wish City Walls was the first song so that Heavy Dirty Soul could be the second song. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded if they had opened with City Walls. I understand Overcompensate they really like as an opener, but I think City Walls could be a pretty good opener as well if they did it right. I ended up going to bed, or I have to go to bed in 5 minutes. I want to say 21 Pilots is such a good band. Can you play Center Mass from the Indians Festival, please? No, only because every single time I've ever played even a snippet of a 21 Pilots song in the background, my stream has been taken down. So, I'm sorry, but it's, yeah. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how it goes with that. I'm probably just not doing it right. You know, I know other people do react to their videos live in a stream and so on. I've never had that actually work out for me. So I love when they do covers. Tyler has such a good voice. The I'm Not Okay cover from the Skeleton Icy era was so awesome. Yeah, there is a benefit in covers in being able to showcase sort of what his voice is able to do beyond what we're used to already hearing, right? Like, I think there's certainly a sense in which we hear him doing stuff on a 21 Pilots song, and we just assume, you know, even if it is a great vocal performance, that the song was sort of written to fit his voice, and so it's not necessarily as impressive, even if it is. Whereas, you know, there's sort of an implication of that at the very least. Whereas if he takes an impressive vocal performance from another artist and then masters it and performs that, it sort of helps to showcase what he's able to do in a different way. I wish I could meet Tyler and Josh and I could, you know, give them song suggestions for quiet shows and stuff. Yeah, that'd be cool. So a bit of news that came out over the weekend and then into Monday as some of these numbers settled relates to 21 Pilots' latest performance on not only the music charts, but also the box office charts. But first, let's take a look at how they did on the Spotify charts with the release of their new song, Drag Path. Now, this is actually about a week old, February 24th, week and a half old, maybe. But for this period of time, the top song's debut global, Drag Path, took number 1. And at this point in time, we've sort of gotten used to 21 Pilots charting very well again, because Breach did so well that something like this, at least for me, initially I was like, oh, that's cool, that's good that they did that. But it didn't hit me right at first how cool it is, I guess, that an unreleased song that they didn't really roll out, I guess, super well in terms of like music industry marketing or anything like that. They didn't have a super promoted music video. Wasn't promoted heavily on social media, you know, all this kind of stuff. It just kind of silently was released. And certainly, you know, they told their fans, but it wasn't like a huge build up to the release of the song. That's doing this well on the charts. And there's another one. This is Top Songs Debut USA. So just for America specifically, it's only in 3rd place. I don't know why that is the case. I knew very little about music charts, but anyway, that's how it is. You know, why it's harder to get number 1 in just one country as opposed to the global market. But I'm sure there's a very good reason for that. I don't understand. I haven't tried very hard to understand either. Drag Path W, hey, hello there. Good to see you, Joseph. Don't really care about Drag Path at all. I like songs like Jumpsuit, Levitate, and Overcompensate the most. Interesting. Well, I mean, if it isn't your sound, then that's fair. All right. And then this was... What was this? Daily streams on Spotify, that's right. So we've got, obviously, Stressed Out holding the lead, as it is wont to do, with the ones that you would expect, Riot and Heathens, and surprisingly Doubt, and Chlorine up there in the line, you know. But certainly these top 3, Riot, Heathens, and Stressed Out, you kind of expect are going to be the ones getting the most streams on Spotify. And Drag Path is up there, at least for now, getting over 1 million daily streams. It's also impressive that Stressed Out is still getting over 1 million daily streams 10, almost 11 years later. So, you know, I don't know how the dips have been. I don't know if that's a recent spike, but still, you know, that's pretty cool. And then it's really cool to see Drag Path up there as well. And then finally, I wanted to look at this. Because certainly this is something I know a little bit more about, let's say, just given that my interest in film is a little more broad than my interest in music. And this, I think, is really cool to see. So in the domestic 2026 box office weekend 9, this is basically the entire period that this film was out. I think it was maybe 2 days before this that it actually released, 1 or 2. But certainly, you know, the runtime, the release window of this film was not very long. Within that period of time, it made it to number 4, despite being in not that many theaters, not having the huge marketing budget that these other films do, especially something like Wuthering Heights or I guess Scream 7. I don't know. I keep seeing ads for Scream 7. I think there was a Super Bowl ad for Scream 7, right? And it didn't beat out that one, but it, you know, it's up there among films like that. And then also beat out the Elvis Presley in concert film as well, which is more directly something that would compete with it. So that was really cool to see. I'm glad it did that well, despite its short run. So hopefully that, you know, a success like this will encourage them to release more films in the future, whatever they may be. Concert films, documentaries, narrative films, anything. Honestly, I'm still hoping. I very much doubt this will actually happen, but I still am adamant that it would be really cool to get a theatrical release of all of the music videos in the sort of narrative of the Clancy Dema story released in theaters on the big screen. And they wouldn't have to do a ton to make that happen. They've already filmed and edited everything. They just need to kind of string it together and make the pieces work well together. So hopefully that will prompt, the success will prompt further things like that. I am curious to know, and I, from a cursory glance, wasn't really able to find this information because I don't know if it's publicly available the way it is for like feature films, and major studio releases. But I'd be curious to know what the budget was that they were working with for this film and kind of how much they profited or if they lost money. But yeah, certainly this proved that there is interest in it, and certainly the average here, which I believe is the average per theater, because we have the number of theaters here, which is significantly lower than everything else in the top 12. It looks like the average per theater was this much. I think that's what the average is referring to. So regardless, that's really cool. All right, so we're done talking about festival set lists for anyone who didn't want that to be spoiled. Done looking at charts as well for anyone who didn't want the chart numbers to be spoiled. Because who knows? That could be a thing. Just close out these tabs so I don't get confused about what I'm talking about, and catch up on some chats here. So the last video I made was ranking every 21 Pilots song on a scale of 1 to 10. If you want to check it out, I'm talking to you in the chat. Cool. Yeah, I'll take a look at it after this. Feel free to post it in the community tab if you would like. Ryan, glad you're still here. What are your thoughts on I'm a Citizen, which we could have got on I'm Nico? We did sort of get it in a way. Yeah, I thought Am a Citizen was a cool video. Would have been really cool to see kind of an official version of that as well. But I thought that was well put together. So cool to see their movie on the charts. Really more than we ever imagined. Very true. Scream 7 was fire. Oh, okay. Are you a big fan of the Scream franchise? I don't think I've seen a single film in that series. And I didn't even know there were 7 until just now. Just hoping they release it in some way. Yeah, it would be really cool if they could put it somewhere. At the very least on streaming. Hopefully in physical release. IEUA69, good to see you. It's one of our 2 channel members. Thank you so much for your support. Always good to see you. I'm glad you're able to make it to these streams. from time to time. Can you see songs that are in queue at a website like BMI? I don't entirely know what you mean. In queue? Can I personally, or can one? Because I don't actually know the answer to either of those. But I made a playlist of the entire lore music videos. Could I post it in chat? You could try to post it in chat. Sometimes links don't work in a live chat. Feel free to post it in the community tab if that's not working. Sometimes posts with links get held for moderation, so I just will have to go in and approve it at some point, but that's not a problem. Joseph asks, really random question, have you ever listened to Sleep Token? I've listened to one or two of their songs, but never really got into it. twentyonepilots, the animated series, is my biggest wish. Interesting. I don't know. I think I would like a live action one. I think it depends how they do the animation. Because, yeah, I think they would have to animate it in a very particular way. It could work very well, but there's something about the sort of atmosphere of dema that they've already captured through a live action visual media that might be hard to translate into animation in the same way. Bendita Ragaza, good to see you. You did make it. That's awesome. Did you ever do the chart numbers for the live stream experience? I don't know this channel back then, but I would imagine you would. Yeah, I didn't. This channel didn't really exist back then. And by didn't really, I mean it didn't at all. So no, I didn't. I guess that's a good question. I don't know if it would take me a while to pull that up right now, but I certainly can look into that for next stream or a short, or just post in the community tab, because I'd be curious now to know how that went, because I know the experience itself, I think they had something like, what was it? This number sounds larger than I think it was, but maybe it was this big. For the actual live stream on Skilled and IC release day, I think they had something like 1 million devices tune in to that live stream, which certainly implies more than 1 million people were watching it. I can't remember where I heard that number, what the source was, but this was something that I remember seeing in 2021, back in the time, and it seemed legit. So, but that was for the live stream experience itself and not the theatrical release. I think in some ways, they, compared to this, they barely promoted the like theatrical experience version of the live stream. Certainly the theater was a lot emptier when I went to see that one. Although, to be fair, I saw this on a Saturday and I saw that on a Thursday or something. But that one I would imagine performed far worse than this did. But yeah, I would be curious to pull up those numbers at some point. If anyone knows where to find them or has them ready, feel free to post it on our behalf. But I will look into that at some point after this stream and see if I can find those. Not a big fan. I watched the first one, but I went on Friday for my friend's birthday, and I was skeptical at first, but it was honestly really good. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I don't exactly know how to ask. Can one on BMI? So, I'm afraid I just don't know, honestly. I don't know the answer. How do I post in the community tab? Okay, let's see if I can actually pull it up. Go to Perligo. Okay, so I think you have to be signed in, which I'm not, but you go to visit community and then post here, but then I think you have to sign in to do that. So hopefully that helps. Do you know who your top 5 most streamed artists, songs, and albums are of all time? Like on Spotify? I mean, I don't. I'm wondering if I can pull that up somehow, but My friends and I went to JD, and I loved Better Dead. That's awesome. Did you enjoy the show? Did they play it live? That is a good question. Like Into the Spider-Verse style animation is what I was thinking. Okay, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think in and of itself that could be done really well. I still would have doubts about how well it could capture sort of the atmosphere of what we've been given so far, but you may be right. That might work really well. My name is Iris. Oh, okay. Well, that simplifies things. You might have told me that last stream as well, and apologies if I forgot. But hello, Nix9-7756. That name certainly rolls off the tongue. I want to go so bad. I've been waiting for them to announce a headliner. Would have loved to go. You would love to debunk or confirm. Yeah, I'm curious now. But posted it if you wanted to look at it. I gotta pull this all up again. Oh my goodness. Oh, formerly Ambivice. Oh, good to see you. See, that rolls off the tongue much better. Oh, you know what? I might have to approve the post. Give me a second. But anyway, Ambivice, good to see you. I'm glad you made it. I wonder why it was empty, or did some fans not understand that it was just the same thing? That wasn't just the same thing, and there was also behind-the-scenes footage. That could be it. Yeah, it was advertised as such for sure. They certainly made it clear there was going to be more. And honestly, again, it could have just been my particular theater, right? Or the time I went, the showing I saw. I don't know if it actually is representative of sort of the broader performance of the film. But I did think it wasn't marketed to the extent that this one was. And some of the marketing behind this one might have been a result of that. And this was also an IMAX release, which kind of adds this other element. You wanted it to match other usernames? Okay, fair enough. Sometimes I wish I was a fan. Trench era, it just seems like such a vibe. I wonder if we'll get a Trench anniversary surprise. I really hope that they do something for the Trench anniversary. I'll be curious to see what happens in 2028, because in a lot of ways, 2028 is my best guess for when they will release their next album. Kind of, they'll finish out festivals this year, take 2027 largely off, and then start working on an album at the tail end of the year, and then release it in 2028 at some point. I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. They might just completely take 2027 off and then come back 2029. But just given sort of the trajectory of things in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if 2028 is when we get their new album. But then that October is the anniversary of Trench, the 10-year anniversary of Trench, which is crazy. I mean, it's 2.5 years off. But yeah, so I'll be curious. I really hope we get something for that anniversary. I was technically a fan just before Trench came out, but I wasn't. I do wish I could go back in time and be as invested as I am now, and kind of follow the whole rollout of that album, the release of the Cryptic Files, the uncovery of dema.org, all that kind of stuff. I think that would have been really cool to experience. But my theater was about 75% full, and I went in the middle of the day. Nice. Probably 28, 29, yep. Gotta go watch the stream on TV. Ryan, good to see you. Yeah, thank you for being here. Enjoy my face in a larger screen. I don't know. Perligo, 2 things. Do you like video games, and do you like the Backrooms? I like video games. Yeah. I've never played the Backrooms, but you are all over the place. Yeah, you should be sorry. What are you doing? late to the stream, but did we already discuss people's viewing experience? Was there sing-alongs? Was it rowdy? So I'm going to get into the whole, or at least my review of the film in a moment here. Keep getting sidetracked. But yeah, we're going to do a full like discussion of the film itself in a moment. Let me just approve this post if it needs to be approved. Give me 1 second. I've seen this. I have to go into held. There we go. I'm sure this is very fascinating for all the viewers. Okay, I think it should be up now. Yes, Riley Durkin, your post is live. Your link to the playlist. I didn't actually check the playlist. I'm trusting that this is not spam. No, it looks good. Looks good. That's cool. Thanks for putting that together. So if you want a playlist of the lore music videos, the I'm Clancy, I'm Torchbearer videos, all that kind of stuff, take a look in the community tab. The news post has a link to all of that. Reason I ask is there are 2 trailers you should watch tonight. First of all, there is a teaser trailer for the A24 Backrooms movie. That trailer came out. I did hear about that, believe it or not. I did hear that that was being made. Made by the guy who did the original YouTube series. Interesting. And a game called Subliminal. Cool. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to save those for the end of stream just because it's not directly 21 Pilots related, but I will look at those. For sure. So hopefully you can stick around till the end. I just don't want to, I don't want to interrupt the flow with non-21 Pilots stuff when we have other 21 Pilots stuff to get through, if that makes sense. Or JD stuff, you know what I mean. Music related stuff. I've been looking forward to hearing the backslide scream in IMAX sound. Well, let's talk about the film. If you want, what was I going to say? If you want to, Joseph, you could link those somewhere. I'm sure it won't be that hard to pull up. But again, I'll do that towards the end of stream. It's a teaser, not a trailer, like a minute. Yeah, but, I'll want to talk about it and things. You're going to your first JD show in May. Awesome. Hope it's a good time. Are they headlining that one, or are they opening for someone else? Definitely make sure to try to corner them after the show and say hi. I'm sure they won't want to talk to you, but Haley Bailey, good to see you. They're opening. Okay. I mean, hey, that's still going to be a great show. I've only seen them twice, actually. I think I've seen JD and 21 Pilots an equal amount. But the first time I saw them, they were opening, and I was blown away by their show. And they were the second opener or something. They didn't have a huge set list, but saw the movie 5 times for an IMAX. That is awesome. That is awesome. Wish I could have. That would have been really cool. So let's talk about this film. For anyone who somehow missed it, 21 Pilots released a film in IMAX last week into the weekend. It had a very short run, unfortunately. I think, certainly given, I don't think they expected it to perform as well as it did in the box office. And I think if they had known that, they might have given it more of an extended release. But at the same time, I'm not shocked it didn't get a super extended release. But yeah, it was a fantastic film. Before I get too far into it, I'll just reiterate, as long as this graphic that you see here is on the screen, we will be talking about the film, and I'm not going to be censoring spoilers because I don't really know what qualifies as a spoiler or not. I'm going to be talking about my experience watching the film, things I liked about the film, some criticisms I had of the film. Careful. So if you don't want anything to be spoiled, if you're waiting to go into this blind whenever it releases on physical media, ideally, or on streaming, ideally, or, however you might be able to access it, probably be one of those two ways. Just mute the stream until we're done looking at this graphic, essentially. Once this is off screen, I won't be talking about the film as much. I won't be spoiling it. There probably will still be messages in the chat. There's not a lot I can do about that. I mean, I think it's in a lot of ways for a game to talk about this film and spoil it, because it's finished its run in films. And there wasn't a twist at the end. It wasn't like they announced at the end of the film that they were no longer going to play any shows or something like that. They were breaking up as a band. There was nothing crazy like that. So, there's not a lot to give away, but I certainly understand wanting to experience the little details fresh for yourself. So, with that being said, let's actually talk about this, but I don't want to let the chats go by without staying caught up. So, gonna be great. Yeah, the J Show will be awesome. Saw them on YouTube, and they said they'd sign my vinyl of Silver, so I think I'll talk to them. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely make sure to bring that. I don't have any signed vinyls from them because they didn't have any vinyls last time I saw them. But I have a signed drumstick and a signed t-shirt and a signed poster. So, our first theater was sold out, showing after that too. Second one was 90%. That's great. Saw it twice. The sound in IMAX was amazing. Yep, it was fantastic. Hope we get a physical release. They're listening while I do my math homework. Awesome. I think 2 + 2 still equals 4, if that helps at all. So, yeah, this was a fantastic film. I thought it was very well put together. I went into it expecting that there were only going to be 1, maybe 2 portions of documentary footage. For some reason, I misunderstood or misheard something that said there was a segment in the middle kind of splitting the film in half where they showed the documentary footage, and then it was just concert bookending that. But it kind of opened with a little bit of documentary stuff, went into concert, then more documentary when they got to the B stage. And then from they did the B stage all the way to the encore, more documentary stuff, and then they closed out the film. And yeah, it was a great... So just leaving the concert stuff aside for now, just talking about the documentary. It did a couple of really good things. It helped to highlight various aspects of the tour production that I think some of us kind of already had some inkling of from other behind-the-scenes tour diary things, but not necessarily as fully a kind of understanding or having this close of a look into what went into putting on a show like this, especially when you're on a tour going into a different country and kind of working with them there. Like they said this, I think, a number of times, that in a lot of ways they just kind of had to work with what they had there, as opposed to, having the normal prep time that they normally have when they're locally in America, being able to jump from venue to venue that aren't actually that far apart. So that was really cool to see. Also just getting Tyler and Josh's perspectives on, what it was like to be on a tour like this, to put on a show like this, to be away from their families, to be doing a show like this after so many rooms. Gonna be reading the chat while I talk. So many years. So yeah, I thought that was all really well put together. I thought the moment discussing how to pull off the car radio stunt was fun. That was well put together. And that, obviously the end credit scene was really good. I thought it also did a good job of highlighting Josh's sort of, shedding more light on Josh and his perspective in all of this. Because certainly Tyler spent a lot more time talking than Josh did, as is per usual, right? But they did have a segment, at least one segment there, where they kind of just followed Josh and focused on him and his warm up and his routine, and just sort of letting, and not necessarily forcing him to vocalize a lot of things so much as just following him and watching him do his thing. And I thought that was really well done, that, Tyler is able to kind of talk about and talk through things that he's thinking through, but Josh isn't always as eager to do that, it seems. So I thought they did a good job of highlighting that, and again, looking at some of the other people in the crew and stuff like that. The other thing that I thought was really good was the music underneath it. Unless I'm going crazy, that music was composed by Roland Bingaman, who did the arrangements for Ned's Cozy Fireplace and the Torchbearer theme and things like that. I think the underlying music for I Am Torchbearer. Excuse me, to clear my throat. But yeah, I thought all of that was really well put together. The concert itself, very well shot. Again, I saw the Clancy tour in the pit, so this really helped to kind of highlight or illustrate a lot of the other elements to the show that I might have missed out on, or I did miss out on by being in the pit. Certainly something like the performance of Stressed Out, I didn't really get to experience because the trees circle was being built around us as that song was playing, and we were like being shuffled away so that a path could be cleared for them to walk through, and we had to, keep our distance, and we were just kind of being moved around by security while that song was playing, so I didn't really get to experience that. And then I watched it afterwards on YouTube, but that isn't the same as being there because it's low quality. So being able to see that at IMAX was really cool to fully get to experience that. And then certainly also just other details about their performance, getting that close up gives you a different perspective than being in the pit, even with the big TV screens that they have. So I thought that was really cool. Obviously, goes without saying, the navigating Nico and the Niners into Heavy Dirty Soul segment, fantastic. One of the best parts of that set list. Worked really well in IMAX. I think there were some songs that worked better than others. Just as a baseline, the entire thing I thought was really well mixed. It sounded great. But there were some that kind of excelled in that format. In particular, I thought The Line and Heathens worked really well in a theater context, which kind of makes sense given that they're both, one's for a film, one's for a show. But I think, I don't know, just the sound of those worked really well in that movie theater experience. Overcompensate didn't sound as good. It was still good, don't get me wrong, but there was something about the sound of that song that just didn't quite work as well for me in a theater mix as some of the other ones. But that second segment with navigating Nico and the Niners' Heavy Dirty Soul, that was really good. And then the Paladin Straight Bandito segment in IMAX on the big screen, that was incredible. The cinematography in that moment was incredible. I don't know who the cameraman was during that segment. I don't think it was Mark. I think it was probably just one of their other cameramen. But he did a really good job. I'm sure they rehearsed this because I think it's the same feed that's going into the big screens for the audience in the concert. But it was perfectly timed walking around the two singers, right, Josh and Tyler, so that as they circled them and they were sort of, bouncing off and on, Josh starts with I'm a Bandito. I could take the high road, I'm a Bandito. And then Tyler chimes in with I could swim the Paladin Straight, that kind of stuff. It was perfectly timed, so as they circled around, they captured them just as they were starting their respective parts. So that was fantastic and very impressive. And yeah, just that in IMAX, in the IMAX sound mix, was incredible. Everything looked great. The visuals were all fantastic. The moment right leading into navigating, when dema is shown, that music is playing and the fire comes on, very well done. That was great. Obviously, the car radio stunt, excuse me. I don't know what's going on. Losing my voice or something. The car radio stunt was really cool, having him go on that large building. I did think, and this isn't their fault, it was just seemed to be the venue that they were working with, but they didn't have a trap door for him to jump through like they did at my show and I think most of the other shows. So it was a little less impressive visually. I think it would have been much better to have him fall through the trap door and then appear up on the stage, but it still was done well. And it was, again, very impressive that they were able to pull that off, but I think it would have been cooler to have the trapdoor there. Again, not a lot you could do about that. The only other issue that I have, not what I just mentioned wasn't even that big of an issue, was I don't think they should have cut vignette And the reason for that is not because Vignette is a song I really like, although I do really like it. But because the transition from Holding On To You into Car Radio was really abrupt because they cut that. And it made me worry for a moment that all the transitions from the songs that they cut would be as abrupt. And they didn't end up being as abrupt. I think all the other transitions worked quite well. I kind of knew where they were cutting songs, partly because I'd seen the show. You know, I was aware of the set list. You could also kind of tell when there was a bit of a time jump. But that all worked fine. I didn't think there was a huge issue there. But cutting off the end of Holding On To You when they don't finish playing Holding On To You. It goes into Vignette. It starts playing Vignette. And then they just cut it off and went into Car Radio. And I think for an audience who doesn't know what Vignette is, didn't recognize that song, I don't know how many members of the audience in the film auditorium watching the movie didn't know what Vignette was. But for anyone who didn't, I think that kind of might have been less noticeable. But it made me think right off the bat, oh, we're going into Vignette. They're going to play Vignette. And then it cut, and then they were playing Car Radio. And that was a little abrupt, a little harsh. And I think, I understand why they cut songs. I understand which songs they cut. And the idea behind that, I certainly think a song like The Judge and the way that opens might have dragged a little bit. It wasn't the best or the most visually outstanding compared to some of the other ones that they wanted to keep in, right? If they couldn't have all the songs on the set list, I understand cutting that one. I understand cutting Backslider Vignette. Except for the fact that transition was just really tough. And I do think the Vignette performance was cool, especially at the end where he got on the synthesizer and stuff like that. That would have been really cool to see, more close up. But I get it. I understand why they cut that, except for that transition being so abrupt. And I don't know what they could have done about it, because that transition works really well in the show. It just is hard to cut around. But other than that, yeah, I thought it was fantastic. The second it releases on physical media, if that happens, I'm being a little optimistic here. I understand it's actually quite unlikely that will happen. But if it does, I will definitely be buying it as quickly as possible. Be cool if there are bonus features to something like that as well. I'll be curious to know what that is. But yeah, I thought it was great overall. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about it. Lavish was fun moment. Just looking at the set list. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was really glad to see The Line live, because they didn't play that one at my show. So that was cool to see. I thought that was a beautiful performance. And again, I thought that song worked really well in the IMAX soundscape and all of that. As did Heathens. But with that being said, that was my review of the film. What did you guys think? I'll leave this up here for now, since we're kind of talking through your impressions and stuff like that. I don't want to spoil anything. I missed a lot. Oh yeah, the other thing, sort of the atmosphere of the audience and the experience. In my theater, it wasn't that rowdy. It might have been because I was at a later showing, on a Saturday. It wasn't one of the opening nights or anything like that. Things were a lot calmer. There were some people singing along, but it was mostly kind of quietly to themselves, humming along. But no one was like full lung blaring. I personally appreciated that. I think in an ideal world, there would have been different showings listed somehow, where it's like, this is the one where everyone's going to go and sing along. This is the one if you want to just sit quietly and watch it. I wanted to go in and experience the sound and the mix of the film myself, without, hearing other people singing along around me. But I also perfectly understand people who want to go in and have that sort of atmosphere of everyone singing along to these songs. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I was just kind of grateful that the showing I went to didn't have a ton of that. So that was my experience, but it was quite full. There were a number of people there, and yeah, it was great to see. Very good turnout. So theater was 100% full. That's awesome. I thought there would be footage from the past. I kind of hope they do some sort of road so far type of thing eventually. That would be cool. Yeah. I didn't really expect that for this, but I do agree that would be interesting to see. I like the part where they sat in the seats at the venue. That was really cool. Yeah, that was a really well done segment. The movie is not available in my country. That's annoying. I'm sorry. My theater was sold out first 2 shows, but half full for the last 2. My dad plays the drums in a local band and was laughing at the end and saying it was super relatable. Nice. I was wondering what that music was. It was so good. Yeah, it was a great score. Them working on the show stems together reminded me of the old... Yes, yeah, that was another thing I forgot to mention. That was a really good moment of the documentary footage. Watching them do that. It was cool to kind of even see that they were working on that kind of stuff as they were getting ready to play the shows. I always kind of assume that's something they do, unless there's a real error, that's something they kind of do at the beginning and then just leave as is throughout, unless they're bringing in a new song or there's an issue. What do you mean showed the performance out of order? Because I know they cut stuff. They cut stuff and they, cut to documentary footage and cut back. Just was awesome. Paladin Bandito was awesome on the big screen. Yep. The set list really surprised me. I hadn't seen anything of the world tour before. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. What did you like the set list? Do you think it was good? Dokel's on the big screen was amazing. 100%. Bleeding Trapdoor. Yeah, putting the tarp on the fake Tyler didn't translate as well. Yeah, it just... Especially because I was expecting to watch him jump through the trapdoor, and then it just kind of like he disappeared, but I didn't quite get it, So it was a little lost on me. Was that not a body double? Well, yeah, it was a body double, yeah. So they did play Vignette at the show. They just cut it out of the film. My friend's favorite song is Vignette. He was so upset when they did it. Yeah, it was kind of a tease, right? Like they started playing it and then just cut away. Yeah. See, cutting backslide and cut my lip, again, given the time constraints, I don't really have an issue with. Would have been cool to have them kept in? Yeah, of course. But if they had to cut something, that's fine. But yeah, the flow was a little messed up. But who wouldn't know Vignette? That's a good point. Your theaters aren't really fond of such films. Oh, interesting. Okay. I was 1 out of 7 in your theater. When did you go? What day of the week? I'm glad I could hear the movie without people screaming. I wish people would have done some of the sections that seem to be built out for sing-along, especially during trees. That's fair. I wouldn't have minded if people had jumped in for trees. I was falling asleep during Paladin Strait because that's my sleep song every night. Yeah, there was something relaxing about that moment. I didn't think I was going to fall asleep, but it certainly was I don't know, it's just a great moment. Do we know who the fake Tyler is? No. So that was something that I was kind of hoping they would discuss or reveal in the documentary portions. I kind of thought they wouldn't, just for the sake of preserving the trick and the secret behind it. But at the same time, I think it would have been really cool, especially because they've stopped doing that for the Breach tour because they cut car radio. I think it would have been really cool to kind of see that explained and discussed a little bit more and revealed, and credit given to whoever that double is, because he does quite a good job. So I'm back, Perligo. Good to see you. Levi. The one who wasn't on the roof, yeah. First day, but it was a pretty small Cinemark. Okay. The fake Tyler is the friends we made along the way. Yes. The music dude. Gotta go. Catch you all later. Well, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Maybe it was the seized person at the end of Overcompensate. I mean, maybe. I don't think it was. But I guess if it's what we want to think, right? But there certainly was, I mean, we talked about this last stream actually. That interview from Mark with Rock Sound seemed to imply that they were going to reveal more about the car radio process and creation and all of that than we got. I think what he was referring to was sort of setting up the stunt on that building and all of that. But I kind of took that implication to mean they were going to talk about the stunt itself and how that was pulled off. It was Jay all along. That would be funny. It did seem like they were making it a sing-along, but they were also showing a recording of a concert where they asked people to sing along. So I don't think they really meant that for a movie. Fair. My non-clicky friend came with me, and I was so excited that Heathen's next semester transition. I think we both ascended. That was a good transition too. Did you see my drum show theory? Yes, I did. I liked it. I maybe next stream I'll pull it up and do a more thorough discussion through it. Sort of like a Perligo Ponders-esque segment, but just for that one thing. I thought it was good. Thanks for posting that. Yeah. Do we think the car radio trick is a callback to Clancy's seizing powers? Maybe. I have always been kind of curious as to why they did that. I mean, I think it's just really cool visually as a stunt in the show. A variation on the car radio stunts that he always did where he would climb up. So this is like he teleports up now. But that's an interesting thought. I mean, it also, the trapdoor element always makes me think of trapdoor. Do you think after this festival cycle and when they return with a new album, Tyler will stop wearing the black on his hands and neck? It will just be part of a ritual during a concert. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends what they come back with, but I think if they're fully moving away from the lore in the way that they've sort of indicated and applied, I think it'll be fair to expect that the black paint will be removed. I didn't see Josh's new cover. What is it? Is it good? I'm also going to the Billie Eilish concert film in May. Oh, very nice. Yeah, I saw there was a trailer for that before our one. It's directed by James Cameron, I think, which is crazy. But yeah, hope you enjoy that. All right. I'm going to pull this poster off screen because we're largely done talking about the film. So spoilers are over for anyone who was actually worried about that. We are back. Don't remember what song he did, but it was cool. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I'll take a look. I check up on his channel from time to time. I've never really gotten into drum covers from anyone. So it hasn't been super compelling for me personally, but I certainly have an interest in what he's doing. 21 Pilots would work with Billie Eilish on a song. That could be interesting. I mean, it's certainly... Well, I don't know. See, I've only ever been the most casual of all casual followers of Billie Eilish. But I certainly got the impression that her early work was more similar to something like what 21 Pilots does, and her more recent stuff, while still stylistically similar in terms of delivery, content-wise, is not really along the same lines. So, I kind of wonder if that moment has passed at this point. Billie Eilish is a 21 Pilots fan. Well, yeah, I mean, I figured she would be. What have we talked about so far? That's a good question. What have we talked about? Talked about the charts performance, the new festival set lists, and then the box office performance of the film, review of the film, and I think that was about it. There's a picture of her at the Bandito tour. Yeah, I feel like I remember seeing that. Yeah. Wasn't her first album released around that time as well? Or maybe the year after? Something like that. Like, I'm not opposed to that kind of collaboration. I just do wonder if it fully works now to have them work on a song together. Year after? Okay, that's fair. Yeah. I've seen 2 people at my school with 21 Pilots merch, but they both look older than me, so I'm too terrified to say something. No clicky friends for me, I guess. You should say something. I mean, what are they going to do? Like, going to Shaky Knees? Nice. Stolen Potential collab was amazing, by the way. Thank you. If you're talking about my collab with Stolen Potential, thank you. Yeah, I would talk to them. They have different record labels, so maybe the collab wouldn't work. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know a ton about the music industry and how that kind of stuff works. I think there is cross-label collaboration from time to time, or maybe even fairly often. I think, honestly, the hesitation would come not so much from the record label, because it would be a good... I think they would both kind of help that song and release perform really well. I think from a label perspective, they would be all for it, unless there was some dispute over rights or something like that. But I think the hesitation would more come from 21 Pilots themselves, because they don't do a ton of collaborations at all. And I think it might have been more likely that they would have done that in 2018 or 2019, but she perhaps wasn't quite big enough yet. I don't know. Or she wasn't interested. Or they weren't, I think always as a default, they're just not interested in doing collabs. But I think that kind of would have been the peak moment to have that happen in terms of content. And now, not so much. Tyler did a cover of 24 by Switchfoot. Yeah, that's sort of the closest to a collab that I can think of recently. They did a performance with the VMAs. Yeah, but that's like... 1, that's not something they do a ton of to begin with. But 2, even that wasn't a released song. That was a performance at an award show where they worked together. Yeah, 24 is great. That was a good cover. What are your thoughts on the Raven Below? If that's a band you recommended to me, I'm afraid I still haven't listened to them. Or maybe I did. I don't know. There was a period of time right after, this was like in October maybe, September, right after I did a video talking about other bands beyond 21 Pilots, like JD, IDK How, so on, that a number of people reached out and recommended bands to me. And I went through and I listened to almost all of the ones, at least that I saw in that first week or two, recommended. But I didn't have terribly in-depth notes about any of them, but I did listen to a lot of those. So if that's something you recommended back in the time, I'd probably listen to it. I would just have to get a refresher to know what I thought. The cover should be released for Seven Nation Army. Yeah, that would be really cool. Okay. The other thing, so just to kind of give you a basic idea of what we're looking at for the rest of stream tonight, since we're already about an hour and a half in. There are a couple of things related to DragPath that I want to look at real quick. This was a recent post on the subreddit this afternoon that I think is really interesting. Just, I don't know, maybe you won't find it interesting or as interesting as I do, but I used to dabble in stop motion, and I certainly have watched my fair share of behind the scenes of stop motion projects. And I certainly have an interest in film and stuff like that. So this I thought was really cool. So look at that. Another random update thing. Then there's a video, a new interview that dropped that has been sort of going viral, or parts of it have been going viral among the fan base. That's part of, it was an interview they did before one of their festivals. It's a great interview. Going to look at a couple of segments there. And then launch into Perligo Ponders and kind of close out for the night and watch those trailers that Joseph wants us to watch at the end as well. So, yeah. Not lot more to discuss. Let's get into it. So this is the post on subreddit. And I guess this is from the director of the original film, Out of a Forest. His Instagram page posted this. He posted this on Instagram. That's what I'm trying to say. And so, I mean, this initial picture doesn't show a ton, but these are behind-the-scenes stills from the music video, from the making of Out of a Forest, which became the music video for Drag Path. So this is from 15 or 16 years ago when they were working on this project. And this is a sort of initial still from that. You can see a figure here adjusting one of the characters. But this is a pretty blurry picture to start. This is some concept art of the scene, the dinner table scene. I feel like there are more bunnies there than were in the finished project. Some more storyboard sketches. This is all interesting, but we'll get to some more, I think, fascinating and striking stuff in a second. This is a thing where I don't know how many of you know a ton about like the stop motion process, especially for something with puppets. This wasn't, from my understanding, from what I can tell, this wasn't actually a claymation, but often you make clay models of the figures that you're going to be working with, just sort of as a concept art, like similar to storyboarding. It's almost like a 3D storyboard of the characters specifically. And so we can see here that there are more figures being created in clay. I don't think the characters were actually clay. I think they used puppets that weren't built around a clay base. I think this was purely just for the sake of having a reference model to work with and stylize. But I mean, already right off the bat, just looking at something like this, you can see how much work and pre-production went into this project, which is, I think, fascinating in and of itself. I mean, certainly it's something that gets lost when you just watch the finished film and see the puppets. And it's like, oh yeah, he made a puppet or two. He made a couple puppets and animated them around in the story they had. No, there's a lot of pre-production that went into this, and a whole shelf full of models that, again, I don't think were even used. This is just planning things out. And then here we've got actually starting to make the puppets and put them together. It looks like we've got some sort of designs and outlines for how to build these puppets out. Again, some more here, sort of just outlining how the puppet's going to move and be able to be animated, all the joints and skeleton structure of that. Creating the face, the different faces for the different expressions. And then this is, there's a clearer shot in a moment, but this is really cool. Stop motion is not appreciated enough. I agree. This is really cool. It looks to me like they shot this in an actual forest. Now, when I watched this, I thought they had certain shots of a forest that were just B-roll of a forest that they shot, and they were able to intersperse among it. But then they also built sort of a model forest that they had this story taking place within. I didn't realize how big these models actually were that they were working with. I mean, you can see here how big they are. This is in a green screen context. But they were big enough that they were able to put them in a forest. And certainly a forest seems large and imposing, more so than it probably would for, humans or something like that. But I don't know. I think it's really cool that they actually went out and filmed this in a forest. I think that was one of the things that struck me the most when I was just kind of scrolling through these images. That I had not expected at all. This being on a green screen is interesting. Again, given the size, I kind of understand why they didn't build out a whole set. I certainly was imagining this was all taking place on a much smaller scale with much smaller puppets. So I thought it would be easier to kind of build a set around that. This is that moment right at the end. This is a shot, that final moment of the film, of the video. I really wonder how they pulled that off, because mixing live action with a character that is stop motion animated has got to be tricky. I suspect they kind of, I don't know, I think they probably did some tricks. It seemed like most of the stop motion happened, the actual animation happened when it was in a close-up. But yeah, this moment was really cool and really well done. That's the last slide, but if you want to take a closer look at these, it's one of the more recent posts on the subreddit. Go check it out. Really cool behind the scenes stuff. Go give the artist a follow on Instagram as well. If he's posting stuff like this, seems worth keeping up with him. Every single time I see a stop motion puppet, I think that's way bigger than I expected it to be. Yeah, and certainly you can do a certain amount with small ones, but if you have the space, it always, from my understanding, from what I've seen, it always makes sense to make them a bit bigger, because you can do more. You can have more detailed expressions with them. You can have more control over their movements. There are songs by them that I think are inspired by other artists, such as Bixby Canyon Bridge by Dead Cab, by Cutie. Style reminds me of them, especially the OG Drag Path. Interesting. Also, the beginning of Bloody Sunday by U2 reminds me so much of Trapdoor. That could be the case. I think certainly you can hear more influences, more outside influences on the self-titled album compared to some of their later work, for sure. All right, real quick, just another kind of light item before we get into the two main last things that I wanted to look at. That might take a bit longer. This is really cool. Another kind of thing that I spontaneously added to the stream last minute. This was posted, I can't remember if I saw this on Twitter or Reddit, but for anyone who doesn't know, I also have an interest in Lego as well. So this really, really interests me and excites me. For anyone who doesn't know what Lego Ideas is, it's basically this online community created by the Lego company where people can, whether with actual Lego bricks or using one of their 3D models, can create these ideas, these pitches for projects that should be made and distributed and released by Lego. So if anyone, I don't know, saw there was a pretty popular set of The Office, the TV show. They made a Lego set of The Office. That was created by someone on Lego Ideas. It was just, kind of a random fan of Lego built that model, pitched it, it got approved. Then they worked with Lego to create and actually release that product. There's been a number of other things like that as well. The Office is the one I know the most because that's one of the ones I have as a Lego set. But there have been other ones as well. I think there was like a typewriter. There may be the Friends Lego sets as well. That TV show I think were some Lego Ideas. So we'll get into kind of the process for how that even happens, because obviously anyone can just create an account and pitch something like this. You have to get a lot of like fans behind it. But this is really cool, and I can't remember who posted it originally on social media that I saw this, but this is fantastic. I mean I really want to have Tyler Joseph and Josh Dunn in Lego. Gotta go. Great stream. See ya. Thank you for being here, Ducky Doodles. Just on Facebook. Maybe it was Facebook that I saw. I'm not sure. But yeah, so this is the Stressed Out house from Stressed Out music video. We've got them in their blurry face, Stressed Out era outfits. Tyler and Josh and their big wheels and the drum set, and then the house here. And then at the back, we have sort of these little snapshots from various music videos from that era. So we've got Tear My Heart. Look, that looks like the Vessel era. That looks like sort of supposed to be a tribute to the self-titled album cover. Then we've got The Room, where they play and Stressed Out. A Heathens tribute. I'm not entirely sure what these two are supposed to be. I guess that's kind of our front door. But yeah, this is really cool. Got the skeleton outfits here. Yeah, his brother back there as well. Now, these faces are already existing Lego faces. I would hope that if... Oh, sorry. Yes, I will be posting this live after the fact as a VOD. I'll also be posting highlight clips. I did remember to hit record this time, so highlight clips will be in higher quality. But yeah, no, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your continued support. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. And it's always great to see you. I'm glad you can join this. Yeah. So there's a whole back to it as well. There's all these different rooms. I do think it could be cool if there was even more done with the back. This is a little shallow. Obviously, it's a smaller set. This is a really cool room in and of itself, but even just kind of building out these a bit more, having a bit more to the Vessel era one in some way. And I don't know if I would go with the Tear Not My Heart music video. Obviously, it's a very iconic shot, but I think you could do some cooler things. But this gives me a lot of hope, because if something like this could get approved and they make it and distribute a 21pilots product and it does well, one, we could actually get the proper faces of Tyler and Josh in this, right? Obviously, these, as I was starting to say, these faces are already existing Lego minifigure heads. But if they actually turn this into a product, I'm sure they would work with Tyler and Josh, because that's what they've done in the past, to get more realistic looking faces modeled more after those individuals than we have here. That's something that happened with The Office. If you look back at the original pitches of that Lego set, all the characters have sort of weird faces because they're just taking existing minifigure heads to make the characters. And then they obviously worked with NBC to model those new minifigure faces off of the actual characters. So hopefully that'll be something that they would do. And then we would have like officially released Tyler and Josh in Lego. That would be really cool. But what's also really cool is this project is actually doing very well, which you see a lot of pitches on Lego Ideas. I used to more actively follow Lego Ideas and support ideas. Nothing I ever supported actually got approved. You often don't really see much growth. I looked at this yesterday or earlier today, and it was struggling, or not struggling, it was approaching 5,000. That was its next milestone. It was sitting around here. And now it's well past 5,000 in less than 24 hours. And so basically how this works is you have a certain period of time to reach 100, certain period of time to reach 1,000, certain period of time to reach 5,000 followers and supporters of this idea. If you get 10,000 in the next 608 days, then I think it gets sent off and looked at by Lego admins, and then they kind of decide if it's something they want to approach making into a product. It was only 1,000 yesterday. Oh, well, that's great. That's crazy. And Haley Bailey just said exactly what I was thinking. If this gets approved, it increases the chances that we could get a Lego Dema set. Especially if it sells well. I have no idea if it will, right? Certainly something like a Lego set The Office is going to be much more popular than a 21pilots Lego set, just by nature of the fan bases. But that would be really cool. A Lego Dema, or at the very least, some kind of, scene within Dema, even if we don't get a full Dema. The tower, right, with Nico and Clancy and the Torchbearer and some Banditos. That'd be awesome. Obviously, a huge Dema set would be really cool as well, but that's a little less likely for something specific to 21pilots. But anyway, this is actually doing surprisingly well. I don't think it's the first time a 21pilots themed set has been pitched, but I think this is doing much better than they normally do. So, anyone who has a Lego Ideas account, anyone who can easily make a Lego Ideas account, which I think is most people, go support this. It'd be really cool to get this. It'd be really cool to have this. Put it right here, So I really hope this gets approved and actually turned into a Lego set. But at the very least, I wanted to kind of just shed more light on it. I know it's already being posted around the community. It's already seemed to have gone a big boost from that, but hopefully we can get some more traction going on it as well. I think that'll be awesome. Saturday set. I'll buy it even though I'm not interested in Lego. There we go. There we go. Check the community tab. Okay. One moment. 608 days is quite a while. Yeah. I mean, that's what, 2 years? Almost? Nego minifigure. Yep. It's only at 1,000. Want a Lego overcompensate set. Voldsoy. I don't know what a Voldsoy. Maybe the second room from the left is the skeleton IC era with the blue and pink. Maybe. Yeah, that's fair. No trench representation. Yeah. I don't know. But it could be because, I don't know, it's like blurry face era, so it's supposed to be kind of that and previous. That era and previous. Lego versions of the album covers would be cool. 3D Lego models of the album covers. 3D Lego models of the album covers would be really cool. Nego's tower would be really cool. Yep. All right, what do we got here? Check the community tab, I was told. What am I looking for? Oh, the Perligo Ponders one? Yeah, I saw that. I will, I don't think I'll talk about it in this Perligo Ponders, but I will include it in a future one. That's Nico driving away. Yeah, exactly. Rage quitting. All right, so gonna look at the interview in a minute. I'm just going to get up and get some more water, if that's quite all right with all of you, because I'm feeling quite parched and I want to get through Perligo Ponders. So, momentary break, a little intermission in the stream. I haven't done one of these in a while. Pretty sure we do. I don't know though. But yeah, be right back, and then we'll watch an awesome interview, which I'm very excited about, and launch into Perligo Ponders, and then wind down for the night. So. Oh, I see. Okay. So this is what Levi was telling me to look at. He created a this looks like Tyler and Nico from the jumpsuit music video. Very nice. Or Clancy. Excuse me, Clancy. He's gone. Let's talk about him. Kind of rude. Kind of rude. Will we get a Ned minifigure? That would be cool. Even though I'm not like a huge fan of Ned, right? I don't know. I don't actually hate Ned, but yeah, no, I think that'll be really cool. Trash, Lego trash. But anyway, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so I'm gonna pull up this interview and hope that it plays, because I was trying to play it, or not that it plays, that the audio plays. I was trying to play it before going live, and the audio was not working, but maybe it will now. I'm a little worried about doubling or echoing, so you're gonna have to help me troubleshoot this. One of these days, I will kind of have it down to a T. You guys, can you see me and hear me okay? Okay. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. The YouTube backend is telling me everything is dying, but yes, I stepped out to get water. It was really exciting and riveting. So it's more fun this way. Yeah, so you'll just have to help me make sure everything's going okay. But I'm going to unmute something in a second here. I assume you can't hear anything right now. But I don't know what would allow you to hear this. I'm very confused. Okay. So if I cut to this, so we've got the video here. Some of you may have already seen this interview. It was circulating around a little bit ago. He held the water in the palm of his hand. Am I quenched? Man, that's one way of putting it. Maybe it's this. Is this what I need to unmute? Let's try this. Something new popped up. It's very exciting. But I want to make sure I can hear it. I'm gonna play a little bit. Yell at me if it's echoing.
So with this album, we're putting a close on the whole lore aspect that we've been enjoying for the last 10 years. And digging into it, I mean, there's some really great sites out there that kind of explain everything and try to do their best to explain the whole story.
It's echoing? Okay. Let me try something else. You know, Juice, I assume your comment was related to the fact that it's echoing, but I have to say screaming was not actually the most helpful. Okay, it's very quiet. Here, I'm going to try putting on headphones like a crazy person and seeing if I can hear it better that way. And then that way it maybe won't echo. And I can also make it louder. In the past, these things have always been really far too loud, but it's not echoing for you. That's crazy. All right, let's try this again.
Shot a music video for every song on Clancy.
It's way too far back.
I got a couple out there in
podcast Perligo
in the fields, but
yeah, you'd be surprised how cute drummers can be.
So good to go.
They're off camera, of course.
Only off camera.
No echo.
So with this album, we're putting a close on the whole lore aspect that we've been enjoying for the last 10 years.
Okay, how's the volume? Should it be louder? Why do you hear echo? Joseph. No one else hears echo. Should it be louder, or is it good volume? A little louder? Okay, cool.
And digging into it, I mean, there's some really great sites out there that kind of explain everything and try to do their best to explain the whole story. And there's a huge narrative there. Have you ever thought about turning that into a movie?
Yeah, I mean, we get asked that every once in a while. You know, like my mother-in-law would ask me that.
Yeah.
You and my mother-in-law. So,
maybe you
you're in
should
good
like
company.
listen to her.
Yeah, I know.
She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
'Cause I just think that would be so fascinating to be able to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there's. I mean.
Okay. First of all, great interviewer. I mean, if you watch the whole interview, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This interviewer is actually fantastic. Besides the fact they asked this question, this is one of the best interviews they've done in a really long time. But also, great interviewer for asking this question, because we're all kind of wondering this, right? I mean, we keep talking about it in the stream, but I think also other people, obviously are wondering about it. And, Tyler starts by giving kind of a joke answer here, like, oh, it's you and my, it's just you and my mom or my mother-in-law, sorry, just you and my mother-in-law, or asking me about this or telling me I should do this. But then the interviewer follows up, and I think they'll be really compelling. I think it'll be interesting, and he agrees, which I kind of, I don't know. I don't know that we've seen. I certainly, in any of the interviews I've watched, haven't seen such a direct kind of acknowledgement of the fact that something like this would be really, really cool to do. Not just that it'll be like, oh, it would be cool to make a movie one day, but that it would be actually really compelling to translate it into that format. He keeps going, so we'll watch the rest, but. A full movie of the Demon story would come off as cringe. It depends how they do it. I do completely agree there is that concern and that risk that they would have to do it well, which is probably their hesitation, right, with doing it. But also, for the record, the interview itself has a little bit of echo in it. It might be because they're running 3 microphones. They didn't balance it properly. I don't know. But there is a little bit of echo in the actual video itself that some people might still be hearing, even though it seems like the echo on the stream has been fixed, just so you know.
A while, like my mother-in-law would ask me that.
Yeah.
You and my mother-in-law.
So, maybe you
you're in
should
good
like
company.
listen to her.
Yeah, I know.
She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
'Cause I just think that would be so fascinating to be able to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there's, just something to storytelling that transcends different art forms and can live in different mediums. And I think that we've always thought that like putting something behind the music, and if people wanted to dive in and try to understand something else that was going on, they can, I guess. I hope that the fans can tell that there was just a lot of time put into it that isn't necessarily like front facing. There's a lot of research and a lot of world building, and
so now I sort of diving into just talking about the lore and the creation of that as a whole, but just in terms of like an actual movie, I think it's encouraging to see that it's something that they could potentially be interested in. I'm personally myself on the fence about whether or not that's something I would want to see. As someone just mentioned, it could be done well. It could also, there is a risk that perhaps it will be done in a somewhat cringe fashion if it's not done quite right. Like something could read a little odd about doing that. Not necessarily, but there is a risk of that. But I think theoretically, on paper, a dema movie would be really cool. And it wouldn't have to be anything complicated. I'm not talking about some fantastic epic. I'm talking about sort of taking what already exists in terms of a story that they've already built out and just bringing it to the screen in terms of bringing in things that we only saw in the letters, bringing in things that we only saw referenced to I Am Clancy, bringing in the moment where he was in the tower writing Skill and Icy, right? Things that we don't see in the music videos because there wasn't time to show them in the music videos, and bring them to life in that context. And then keeping what we already saw in the music videos, keeping that narrative as well. So you wouldn't actually have to like create a ton of new stuff, but going beyond just stitching together the music videos and releasing that, which in and of itself I think would be really cool to do, as I keep mentioning. But actually bringing the whole story to life on the big screen and making it some sort of like musical film could be cool. Like it doesn't have to be, I guess. But I sort of always imagine it as like, actually, I don't know. I think it could be cool to do something that's just purely narrative based without any of their music, but it could also be cool to do like a 21 Pilots musical, where they still have the kind of breaks into these different songs that they have in the music videos, but then there's a lot more filling out the gaps in between the music videos as well. We need a podcast from Clancy's point of view describing the lore. Well, seeing others portray them would be very strange. Yeah, I'm not saying they should make like a feature film based off the story that they created and hire a bunch of like A-list celebrities or even B-list celebrities to play them. I'm saying they should just make extensions or extended versions of essentially what they already started doing with, the end of city walls, the extended parts of the outside, things like that, where they already have these little bits of narrative playing beyond just the music and just build that out even further. I don't know if they're going to do that because I don't know if they actually want to return to this world. The question then becomes, would they down the road want to make another film about something else entirely, a different story that they build? And that would be really cool to see too. If it were a series that would have time to breathe, yes, or get overplayed. That is, it would be a balance there. Would the movie be called, could be called could be called Dema. Some long movie title we can abbreviate, yeah. Of this interview, I feel like I haven't had a solid interview with the boys in a while. Yeah, no, this is fantastic interview. I'm at most going to look at a third of it. Probably not even that much in the stream tonight. Go watch the full thing. I know I said that about the Mark interview, and I meant it about the Mark interview. Go watch the Mark interview with Rock Sound. But this one in particular, fantastic interview. They include I'm Clancy and I'm Torchbearer, maybe. Or at least, something like that. I don't know. Something with similar meaning. Show Clancy's personality. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just really enjoy doing that. I kind of like, once I get stuck on it, I keep going.
So was the narrative in place from the beginning, or is it something that you started with and it evolved through time and ended up?
I mean, this is a question we've all been asking for a long time. This is a question where if I ever have the chance to sit down and talk to 21 Pilots in an interview, right? If that ever were to happen, don't think it will. But if ever were, I would ask a question like this. Although, I mean, he's asked it now, so I wouldn't. But if I had, right, like this is something I'm really wondering. And again, there's something about this interviewer that really seems to put them at ease and bring out better answers, more in-depth answers, more like meaningful answers from Tyler than I think we've gotten from interviewers in a while.
Where it ended up.
It was in place from the beginning, but admittedly, we didn't know if, like when we put out Blurry Face, that story was there, but it was also, if it was probably able to be ended sooner than it was, like some shows end after like 1 or 2 seasons, and then I think that the idea was, I don't know if people are going to really care about this for this many albums.
We do.
And so what happened was we realized, like, we got renewed for another season. Let's keep going. And
so this is interesting as well, and it's something I've kind of suspected or half suspected for a while, that Blurry Face was built out as a concept album in a way, with the story behind it and all of this that was underlying it, but wasn't necessarily completely surface level the way that we got with Trench. But it was very much constructed in a way where, unlike Trench, you could have ended and moved away from the story after Blurry Face if people weren't interested in it. Whereas with Trench, I do think, and this is sort of, again, I talked about this last stream, the issue that some people had, including myself with Skeleton Icy, is that it seemed like the story had ended and they were moving past it, and that was disappointing for people in a way that I don't think it would have been for Blurry Face, or for fans of Blurry Face, if they had, right, like, I kind of discovered them with Blurry Face, listened to that album a lot. I thought it was a cool concept. It kind of had this like album-specific story behind it, this character of Blurryface. But when Trench was being teased and coming out, I didn't initially understand there was even a connection between the two albums, or that Blurryface was a character that was continuing. And so if Trench had come out and not really had any connection or relation to Blurryface or anything like that, I don't think I would have been disappointed in that, or in the fact that they weren't continuing the story. I'm very glad that they did, and certainly retrospectively looking back, I now would have been disappointed or something. But yeah, I like. It's just interesting to see that they didn't see Blurryface as chapter 1 of the story so much as a kind of pilot episode of a show. And so people could have listened to Blurryface and moved on. Or even, honestly, pilot episode of a show might be the wrong way to think about it. A more apt comparison might be Blurryface is sort of the Hobbit of this story, right? The book The Hobbit you can have as a standalone thing and not need Lord of the Rings to be created. And that book in and of itself is fine, right? Like you don't need the context of Lord of the Rings to appreciate The Hobbit. And so if that was all that was ever created, The Hobbit in and of itself would still be a good book that wouldn't feel incomplete. And I think in some ways that's kind of what Blurryface is like in relation to the Trench saga, where Blurryface was created. It kind of introduces a world, sort of. Not so much a world, but like a theme, a concept, this idea of a character and a sort of battle with this character. But it doesn't really go much beyond that. But then it allows for something like Trench and the Trench saga to be then created and exist within the world that Blurryface allowed for. Just the Giant says, I'm about to go for a few minutes. Subliminal game show is about to start. Man, Nico's back. So I'll talk to you in a bit. Sounds good. Enjoy the trailer. And yeah, I'll look at, what was it, the Backrooms later as well. So hope you get to interview them someday. I do too. It's very unlikely. Yeah, anyway, I just thought that was interesting. It kind of confirmed something that I kind of thought, and it makes a lot of sense. It says car burning. I don't know. All right. Jumping ahead quite a bit. I think this is roughly the right moment.
Goes viral. Does that matter? Any of that stuff. So what's next?
Oof.
Do you know yet? I mean, obviously you guys both have the
Do you want to talk now? I
lives
think
that,
I'm
like,
talking too
okay,
much.
Josh, you just had a baby. Tell us, how's that going for you?
So it went pretty well.
Yeah, we talked beforehand. He was going to answer all these. Yeah, what's next? I mean, yeah, I think like Tyler said, 2025 was packed. It was a blast, but it's also like you need some balance to be able to create the longevity. And so I think between the festivals and the next album that we do, it will be like us being intentional to enjoy some time with our families who sacrifice a lot for us to like go and play shows and get work done. Being a dad's great. I love having a daughter. I'm glad that Tyler did it first, and now it's a lot of fun. So yeah, spend some time with her for sure.
Amazing, guys. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I could.
I'm just gonna jump ahead. Well, it's right around here. But also, can we just acknowledge? I'm probably being too picky, but shooting an interview like this on a handheld camera, it's a little crazy, a little wild. I mean, you can see from the mics they have, this isn't like top-notch production. I mean, I think they're kind of just working with what they have at a festival, but like shooting an interview handheld seems tough. I don't know. Not what I would do, but hey, it worked out. Perligo is the next clancy. You guys are crazy. All right. There was, yeah. So that was less interesting than I remembered it being. I mean, it's cool, but this segment is, I think, this is the longest and most interesting segment of this interview. Really, the main reason why I wanted to pull up and talk about this interview.
But all right,
Yeah.
let's talk about Drag Path.
Yeah.
Just got that released to the masses this week. Super excited about that. Amazing song.
Thank you.
And the video, I'm curious about the video because you guys chose to borrow some art from another video. Can you talk about that and what led you to that?
Yeah. So about 15 years ago, it was actually on Vimeo. Do you remember that website?
Yeah.
Vimeo call out. That's crazy. So, I mean, obviously we've discovered the video on YouTube as well. But it seems like at this point it was just on Vimeo as well. But it does confirm right off the bat that Tyler Joseph found this video 15 years ago. That's something he's had in mind for a while.
It's not really. Is that a thing still?
I feel like it is, but through YouTube, right?
Vimeo.
No, Vimeo is still a thing, but I don't know if it's. I mean, it still exists. Let's just say that.
No, you're thinking of Vivo.
Vivo.
Yeah. No,
Oh, yeah.
Vimeo was like it was trying to be YouTube, and it was a little bit more catered to like the creators and stuff. And this was a while ago, but yeah, stumbled on this this film called Out of a Forest and fell in love with it, and found out it was kind of unofficially released as more of a, I think it was more like a university school project. But I've talked to Tobias. I reached out to him, who created it, and just basically said, like, man, I've loved your film for a long time. I've never thought that it got, like, you know, as much credit and eyeballs as it should have. And there's some uncanny resemblance between what the song is talking about and what your film, you know, some of the themes that are in there. And oh man, it's probably one of my favorite videos that we've ever done, simply because
That in and of itself, that sentence right there is crazy. This is one of his favorite videos that he's ever put together. And so that, combined with the fact that he said he found this 15 years ago and he thinks it's super underrated and so on. I was really surprised he was so forward with explanation of Drag Path. He seems to be becoming less cryptic. Yeah, well, I mean, okay. I'll talk about that in a second, actually, so I don't get distracted. But I think you're right. I don't know. So those two things combined, the fact that he thinks this is one of the coolest videos they've put out, and he explains in a moment here, I kind of cut him off, sort of the reason behind that, because it does seem like kind of a bold statement. But then also just that it's something he found 15 years ago. That he has known about this video for a long time. It's not something they recently discovered and were like, oh, this fits. This is actually something he's known about. I think is really interesting. And it sort of implies or half confirms that they might have had this in mind, or at the very least been influenced by it as they created the story. So let's keep watching.
because when I first saw it, I was like, I don't think this existed yet.
Right. Like, so him watching the film predates the existence of the lore. So just let that sink in, right?
And what a way to bookend the journey that we've been on so far, is to be able to, commission this film and pay those artists and everyone who worked on it to then put it on this song Drag Path, which is this unreleased, unofficial song with an unofficial video, and put them together and give them both their moment.
Let that kitchen sink in. Top tier joke. Top tier. It really seems to me like he's sort of saying without saying that the fact that he wanted this video to bookend the story is because it does actually play some kind of influence, or it had some kind of inspiration on the story. I'm not in any way trying to say that he copied the story for the trench narrative from the video. I mean, I don't think there's really even much implication that that would be the case. The video isn't directly related to what we, it isn't, what we see in the video doesn't directly play out in the trench story or anything like that. Some of the themes, some of the concepts, some of the imagery, I think certainly played a role in inspiring certain things that Tyler later created. And I think he's kind of acknowledging without acknowledging fully that here.
Especially for me at that time, so fond.
Yeah, Death Inspires Me line from Heavy Your Soul could have been inspired from it. And I'd be curious to go back and find that video, which he probably released around the time that he saw this video of, I think it's called like Street Poetry or something, where he's just walking down a street in Ohio, kind of delivering some of those lines from Heavy Dirty Soul. But this is, I think it's like 2012, 2011, something like that, when that video came out.
Fondly remember seeing it for the first time and wanting to create something powerful. And
so in a way, the original art, the original video has inspired you to want to create something that
100%. It's to the point where, I think that I showed my dad the video a few days ago, and he's like,
I have to say, part of the reason why I like this interview so much, but especially the answer to this question, is this is, in a lot of ways, most ways, this is the most excited I've seen Tyler in answering a question in an interview. Also, I did realize, where was it? Someone commented something then. Oh yeah, he seems to be becoming less cryptic. Yeah, so I think now that the story has ended, and it really has ended, now that Dragpath is out officially, I think more and more over the next few years, I would not be surprised if we start seeing more interviews like this where he becomes less cryptic and starts saying upfront more things about the creation of the story, what different things mean in the story. He kind of already said he's going to be more upfront in Clancy. That wasn't quite true, but in some ways it was. And certainly now that the whole story's been wrapped up, I think he's going to be a lot more upfront, a lot more clear about some of this stuff. Have I seen his I Renew video? I think so, yeah. The line video he made a while, yeah, this is a line. Anyone else getting crazy feedback or reverb? Do let me know. Thank you for flagging Bandita, in case it's a common problem. Seen the line poetry video, such a good wordplay about important topic. Yep, that's a good video. But yeah, I think, what was it? It was on his old channel. No reverb? Okay, cool. It's probably just your earbuds then. Hopefully it's not something worse, like your whole computer.
I think you showed this to me like a decade ago. I was like, yeah, I probably did. I was like showing my family, like, look how awesome this video is and how it captures like such a cool emotion. And how the moon the whole time is the top of that hat.
Sorry, I cut off what he was saying here. This is actually important.
Such a cool emotion. And how the moon the whole time is the top of that hat, and where you feel like they're just cutting to it to kind of add, setting the scene or establishing your characters in the world, but it's actually referencing like the thing that's going to eventually save this little rabbit.
I think this is one of the most important parts of this interview. This reference to the moon. Because this may be one of the things, obviously we have lines like Death Inspires Me Like a Dog Inspires a Rabbit. We have certain other references that we see throughout the lore. This concept of the moon and the importance of the moon is something that I've been trying to put my finger on for a while, especially as we got into the final chapter of the lore. And we see this imagery, especially starting with the contract. I mentioned this when the Dragpath music video came out. It was one of the things that struck me about that music video, this short film, was that imagery is very, very similar to the imagery that we see in the contract. Being circulated. He's circling me. Man, I can't talk. Anyway, that imagery of that big white moon-like object in the contract, and then in the flashbacks to Jumpsuit in City Walls, and then in the live stream version of Heathens and Trees. Why did imagery like that keep appearing throughout the story? And then we get the Dragpath music video with that there. And then in this interview, he talks about how that was something that stuck out to him and was a kind of a major point of curiosity and inspiration from that video, something he thought that was done very well in that video. And I don't have much more on it than that, but I think it makes me want to go back and kind of just study through everything with that context in mind. To look back at the music videos that we got, especially the lore-related ones, with that context in mind. To look back at the letters, with this context, with this idea of the importance of the moon, coupled with this other thing that he said, where the moon was something, and here this could be something that extends into the lore, not necessarily as the moon, but as something else in the lore. That there's this idea of something that's kind of there, that they keep cutting to, and it seems like they're just cutting to it to show it. But really, that's the thing that's going to save him in the end. And out of a forest, it was the moon. They keep cutting to the moon to kind of create the setting, but the moon is what saves him in the end. So is there something like that we've been shown, that we've been given subtly throughout the lore, throughout the imagery, that we haven't taken note of? Because it just seems like it's there as sort of general setting, a sort of imagery context, visual context for the story, but really that is what's going to save him. Because again, we didn't see what saves him at the end, because he hasn't been saved. He's going through the cycle again, but then Dragpath implies this other ending where he does get saved at the end and he does make it out. So is that answer hidden among the story that we've been given already? Is that evidence there for us to find, as he seems to be implying in the song, in the lyrics of Dragpath, that we just need to go back and actually find it with the context of what he says here in mind? So that's something I'm going to be kind of thinking about and looking through soon. It's kind of the next thing I'm planning to work on. Hopefully it comes to something, right? But that really stuck out to me, and I think, again, I don't know if it's necessarily the moon itself, right? I don't know if it's a one-to-one comparison. I suspect there's something else that we've just completely overlooked because it's hidden in plain sight. But then once we find it, it will explain a lot. There was a moon in the contract? Well, sort of. I mean, not really. There was a big light in the sky that's like reminiscent of a moon-like shape or object. That wasn't necessarily a moon, but it has similar imagery. Yeah, curious to know has the Jumpsuit video flashback being at night with the giant moon in City Walls. The moon in the contract is where all the red-eyed figures are sucked into. It seems to connect to the Dragpath music video. Very true. Exactly. That was another thing that I thought of when seeing that as well. Again, I don't know if it's a one-to-one direct thing. I don't know if the moon is the answer in the story, or if it's more that, okay, here's a connection. You go find the actual answer based off of that. Now, there's always been a topic in the music, and the moon shows the light. That's true. That's true. Maybe each of those music videos shown in City Walls music video is another cycle coming to an end. Like each music video is a little later in the cycle, showing how the cycle is progressing until he's drawn back. That could be true.
Is the moon. I just think it's one of my favorite themed pieces that I've ever seen, and it really was a dream come true when it came together, and we were able to kind of like mesh our worlds and our art to two unofficial things coming together officially.
And they really do work extremely well together. Like the song's beautiful, the video is beautiful, and then together is just it almost creates magic.
Yeah. So fun fact: the beginning of that video, when the magician walks in, it didn't seem like Tobias, the original creator of it. I was talking to him about doing some sound design work on the beginning of that video, and he didn't have the audio of the magician walking in anymore. So the footsteps you hear in the beginning of that is actually me holding an iPhone down to my feet in my studio and walking timed to his
Oh wow.
feet. So yeah,
That's kind of interesting. Not quite as compelling as some of the other things, but it's an interesting little behind the scenes tidbit.
I was able to kind of like not put our own flair on the way that it was presented in the beginning, and so I was proud of some of my sound design work that I enjoy doing.
That's
so
cute.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
A random question: do either of you ever?
All right, that gets into a whole other question, which is fun. Someone else referenced it already. Go watch the full interview. Genuinely, if you thought any part of what I just showed you was interesting, the rest of the interview is, I think, equally as interesting. Maybe a little bit less because some of that drag path stuff I think really is very, very interesting. But yeah, that was it from that interview that I wanted to look at. Let me just pull up Perligo Ponders real quick, and we'll launch into that in a moment here. But this will be our final segment of the stream tonight, because we've been live for over 2 hours now. So thank you to everyone who's been sticking around. Been a good time so far. Perligo Ponders, and then just some light items hanging out as we wind down for the end of stream. I feel like City Walls intro sound clip was just a way to let us, those of us who know about the lore, know that they are related. Yeah. Look back at the evidence to convict Clancy in light of Dragpath. City Walls into the beginning shook me a little. Intro in the beginning. Just give me a second. I have to find something real quick. All right. Can you help me with my homework? Sure. Probably not, but I can try. What's your homework? Where did you get the Location Sessions vinyl? I found it on Amazon, but it was very expensive. Trying to remember now. So it was a Record Store Day exclusive in 2022, 2021? No, it wasn't 2021. Maybe it was 2020, honestly. I didn't manage to snag a copy when it was released originally as part of the Record Store Day release, right? But I got it from a reseller pretty soon after. So it wasn't quite as rare, wasn't quite as limited edition, right? It wasn't, I don't know, it was just more recent. It hadn't gone up in value in the same way. So I bought it, I think, off of Discogs. I don't know if you know that site. It's basically, I don't know, it's like all things vinyl basically is there. You can create an account and kind of create your own catalog there, figure out what your catalog's worth. It reflects market rates. It's a pretty cool site. It's also a good place to kind of find, well, I often use it just as reference to kind of figure out what different releases were created for various things, especially for 21 Pilots. It lists all the versions of Stressed Out that were ever released physically with the CDs and the vinyls. All the versions of Blurry Face, Vessel, Trench, all that kind of stuff. The vinyl variants that existed, it has all of that catalog there. But it also has a marketplace where people can buy and sell stuff. So I bought that from there, and I've had it ever since. I bought it, I think, in 21. I bought this Salu Felina jacket they wore from MTV Unplugged. It was like $140. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, overall, I'm not a big fan or user of wearable merchandise, like clothing, merchandise, hats, things like that. But there are certain merch pieces of that type that I find interesting, that I think look good, that I would like to have. But they're just so expensive that it doesn't seem worth it to me because, the calculation in my mind is I'm much more interested in having vinyls than a hoodie or a jacket that's 21 Pilots branded. And so for the price of $140, I can buy a good number of vinyls or CDs or cassettes or whatever it may be. So it's never really seemed worth the price for me. There's some really cool merch items like the trench jacket and things like that from that era that I think would be really interesting. The MTV Unplugged merch I do really like. Just can't justify the cost on my end. What do you think of the alternative lyrics for Tally, which is my favorite song of all time, in the Breach vinyl? So it's just in the booklet, right? Like the vinyl itself doesn't play the alternate lyrics unless I'm misunderstanding that. But I think it's interesting. I talked about it on a couple streams ago. I think so. At some point, once this final from Breach arrives, I'm gonna do a stream going through my physical merch collection, kind of my primary collection of my 21 Pilots vinyls, IDK How, JD, a couple other like film scores I have, because someone wanted to see that, and some of my CDs as well. Just kind of looking at all of that. And then as part of that, I do want to, for a certain segment of that, talk about the differences between the physical releases and the streamed versions of Breach, because there are differences there. There's things in the lyric booklets and all of that we've talked about ever since they came out, because it's been a subject of conversation, but I've never really done an official like breakdown video of, and so I figure that can be a good opportunity to do that. I'm also, at some point, I might do this next stream, going to actually open my box sets, because I got one copy of each of the box sets from Breach, the Torchbearer, Nova Bishop, Dark Clancy, and I just never opened them. And I keep waiting for the right moment. Like, I want to, at this point, I have to like wait for a special moment to open them. I think originally I was just waiting for a quiet evening, and right after Breach came out, I didn't have any. And then it kind of got to a point where I was busy with other things and it fell off. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to open them now, I should make a video out of it. So at some point, I'm going to, probably as a stream segment, just actually unbox those and look at them. I'm sure everyone's already seen them. Those of you who have them have already looked at them. I haven't opened mine yet, so I'll be doing that at some point. I'm curious about getting into physical media because I think it's awesome, but I'm not sure if I want to get into CDs or vinyls. It depends what your purpose is for getting physical media. Because I think CDs are easier if you want to get into physical media because of having access to listen to them a lot. Whereas I usually just get both, but I like displaying vinyls a lot, even though I don't play them a ton because my record player is broken. But I like getting the CDs to have the CD quality, to be able to play the CDs physical, the physical CD, rather than having to worry about streaming and internet and that kind of stuff. But then I much prefer having vinyls to display because I think they're really good, kind of just pieces of art to put up. Levi, it's good to see you. Try to make it next week, but no promises. Well, I don't know if I'm going to stream next week. I mean, I might, but more likely it'll be the week after. But yeah, listen to the rest on your own. It'll be available. But thank you for being here, as always, and sharing that image. The box sets except Nova. Mine's playing right now. Nice. So, he listens to the vinyl pretty often. Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like, certainly, playing vinyls is a more complicated thing than playing CDs, right? You generally have to, if you want it to sound really good, you have to invest in a good quality record player, and that's not as common as having a CD player sitting around. Most, CD players are easier to find. Sometimes computers have them. Get a pretty cheap CD drive. There isn't a ton of difference in quality between a cheap CD drive and a really expensive one. Also, like PlayStations typically have ability to play CDs and things like that. So it's just a lot easier to actually have the access to play a CD as opposed to something like a vinyl. I'm all for playing and listening to vinyls, and certainly, if you think it's going to be worth the time investment and stuff to get that set up, just not egregious. It's just more than a CD. That would be the way to go. But it really depends. If you're like, primarily, I want to have easy access to my music that I want to own offline without having to worry about streaming, and I want it to be better quality than streaming, but I don't care a ton about the whole vinyl experience or having something to put up as an art piece, I might opt for go for CDs. But it also depends. Certain things like the location sessions are only on vinyl. So you do have a lot of vinyl records, Haley. Yeah. Your Breached record has a skip in it. I'm sad because it's on Robot Voices, my favorite song. That is unfortunate. Is it a colored vinyl? Because unfortunately, I've only ever had issues in playback on colored vinyls. Like red. Honestly, it isn't always, right? My MTV vinyl is blue, and it's never had any issues. It's a great pressing, but it's sort of a clear blue, so that might be why. My physical media currently includes 2 NF-CDs, Hope and Fear, very nice. Ben Rector CD, Into the Morning, 1 21 Pod CD, Breach, Torchbearer box, and a Ben Rector cassette. Nice. 2 Owl City CDs. And potentially more. 1 JD vinyl. Nice. Nice. Good to see you back as well, Joseph. We're about to get into Perligo Ponders, and then we will watch your suggested content. If it's terrible, I'm going to have to ban you for about 3 months, something like that. So it's a normal clear vinyl, though. That's interesting that it skips. That is odd. Can you see kind of any defects or imperfections in the vinyl? It could be a record player issue. Your needle could be really light, and that could be causing something, but depends. I don't know what what the context is in terms of comparing it to other vinyls or anything like that. But also, Haley, from my understanding, if your needle starts to get like dust on it, and they can be hard to clean, but if you don't keep your player, closed, or you don't have a dust cover on your needle or anything like that, and it starts getting dust, it can be hard to clean off, and then it can get staticky really easily. So it's not possible to clean off. You just have to be careful, or take it to someone who actually knows what they're doing. One of mine has an imperfection. I can't recall what song, but I pee a couple of times to make sure it was the vinyl. Yeah, my Blurry Face vinyl is a red pressing, and it is by far the worst vinyl for playback that I own. I think pretty much every single song on that pressing skips at some point. And it looks great. It's a great color. It's a great shade of red. It's a great looking pressing, but it just cannot play properly. Oh, you clean your needle pretty often? Well, yeah, then it could be something else. I mean, again, depends what record player you have, but that's kind of been my biggest hurdle with the vinyl stuff, is with listening to vinyls on an active basis, is that cheap record players often start breaking fairly quickly, and expensive ones can get really expensive really fast. And if you're really into it, you can get things to sound fantastic. I haven't had the time to dedicate to getting really into it, but it's a picture disc. I should see if both my vinyls have it. It's on Robot Voices. Your Breach record has a small bend in it. I mean, if it's a little warped, that's not that unusual. But picture discs can be hard to play properly. You have 12 vinyls and no record player. There you go. Do you think Dragpath will ever release on vinyl? I really hope so. I don't think so. I think the moment to do that was when they released Dragpath. But You never know. It could. I kind of don't think so at this point. Yeah. All right, let's get into Perligo Ponders. I forgot to intro last time, so for those watching on YouTube, this is YouTube. For those watching, not as a stream, for those watching a highlight video of this. Hello, and welcome back to another. I should actually turn this off. I'm a pro. That's not what I meant to do. There we go. Hello, and welcome back to another installment of Perligo Ponders, in which I respond to your comments, questions, and theories about my own comments, questions, and theories related to the lore and music of 21 Pilots. As always, if you would like your own comment to be featured in the next episode, simply leave a comment asking an interesting question or proposing a compelling theory. You can feel free to flag it as Perligo Ponders if you would like, but I don't just pull comments with that flag for inclusion in these episodes. Let's get into it. All right. Knowing about stuff that can go wrong, I think I'll stick to CDs. That's fair. Again, if you want like the art pieces, get vinyls. It's great for display. A little more finicky for playing, but when you get it to play right, other people can make a better, more compelling argument than this. But when you get it to play right, it can sound really good on vinyl. It's just getting it to play right. Greens has just popped up on my homepage at 3:34 a.m. I'm not here for long. Well, it's good to see you, Regiment. World War I. Yeah, seems like an inconvenient time for you to be watching this. But thank you for joining, nonetheless. All right, this first question comes from an anonymous user on Spotify, who asks, I thought about Blurryface a little bit. Do you think the whole storyline actually begins with Jumpsuit and Heavy Dirty Soul, and its whole album is actually the beginning of the final cycle? Consider Stressed Out. The line, "My name's Blurryface," may be telling us that this version of Nico from Breach's Clancy trying one last time to make a song. Also, Ride might be an extension of Heavy Dirty Soul between the escape and the final Clancy waking up back in the car. I might be reading into it too much. So, the whole storyline begins with Jumpsuit and Heavy Dirty Soul. Jumpsuit's not on Blurryface, so that part's a little confusing. However, the idea of... I'm trying to actually comprehend fully what's being asked in this question. Excuse me. Okay, I see. So, could Blurryface, essentially, this seems to be what he's asking, could Blurryface be the beginning, as a whole album, be the beginning of the final cycle? And then everything we see from Blurryface onwards is a continuation of that final cycle. And there have been other cycles that came before, but those aren't kind of outlined or illustrated in the story that we get through the lore albums. All the lore albums from Blurryface through Breach are related to this one final cycle. And I think in a lot of ways this is kind of a common mainstream almost theory of what we see here in the story in the lore albums, that this is all one final cycle that's taking place, the Trench Saga. I think it is and it isn't, right? I think the way I've always interpreted it and the way I've always understood it to be playing out, or not always, but ever since I Am Clancy really came out, is that rather than what we see being just the final cycle, although we do see the final cycle play out, we are also given glimpses of previous cycles in a number of different ways. And that's why the I'm Clancy video contradicts other things that we see, or at the very least contradicts other things that we read. So whereas on the visual side, perhaps largely everything we see visually is all part of one final cycle, I do think there are elements throughout everything else that we're given in the story of other cycles sort of being told simultaneously to this final cycle. And so it's like the story is being told in a non-linear fashion almost, while still being told in a linear fashion. So we have the final cycle happening, and then throughout that narrative arc of the final cycle, as it's being told to us, we almost get like these flashbacks forcing their way in to previous cycles that have taken place. And so we get information from those previous cycles and things like the letters in Clancy's journal, and things like parts of music videos that don't quite make sense, flashbacks and city walls that don't line up with videos that we actually saw. The events of Heavy Dirty Soul, where we see, or the events, of Jumpsuit in relation to Heavy Dirty Soul, where we see two Tylers or two Clancys at play with one another, one having knowledge of what the other's doing, but not actually there at the same time as he is, but almost there at the same time as he is, right? The Jumpsuit as a music video almost illustrates what I'm trying to say here, where we have one narrative arc playing while another one forces its way into that narrative. But it's a previous Clancy, it's a previous version, or it's a future one. That's a matter for debate. I think it's a previous one. But regardless, it could be either. And so I think all of this that we see in this final story, or this final cycle that's told throughout the whole story, from Blurryface to Breach, is actually kind of a number of cycles sandwiched together and told as one. And that sort of understanding, that way of looking at this arc, this narrative, helps me at least understand or come to terms with a lot of the discrepancies and misalignments between the different narratives that we're given, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answered the question. Certainly from what I was able to understand of the question, I think that did. I didn't purchase any of my vinyls intentionally. Either won them, got one from a pre-sale code, autographed insert picture discs because I was at the listening party. That's awesome. Gonna go make toast at 10:45 p.m. Solid. I'm a little confused what time zone you're in, because it is 10:41 p.m. for me here. So you're in that time zone that's 10 minutes ahead of me, something like that. I wonder what leads Clancy to start vialism in the first place. Does Clancy start vialism in the first place? I mean, that's an interesting question, right? I mean, the implications of sort of looking at not just the Nova Bishop, but all the Nikos before that as failed Clancys who failed breaking out of the cycle and then became Nico, could lead us all the way back to a starting point where Clancy is kind of at the initial beginnings of this. And then it goes, Clancy becomes Blurryface, becomes Nico. Or Clancy becomes Nico, becomes whatever, right? Becomes the bishop, and then a new Clancy appears, starts a cycle, becomes a bishop. But so did that initial Clancy institute vialism, or was it Clancy who has become Nico instituting vialism in the first place? Right? Did the first Clancy hijack the religion? Maybe. But I think in a lot of ways, I think the first Clancy came to Dema, or founded Dema. This is all purely speculation. There's nothing in the history of Dema that we've been given in the letters or anything that backs this up. But one possible way to imagine this is Clancy's in Dema. There's a group of people. It's a little leaderless. We know he's tempted by control, and he succumbs to that temptation. So he takes over Dema. He's corrupted by that power. He becomes Nico, Blurryface, hijacks the religion in place, institutes vialism. He becomes this evil, corrupt leader. A new Clancy springs up to take him down. That's sort of a way of understanding the beginnings of this. And maybe even understanding that Clancy arrived, that initial Clancy, the one that turns evil and institutes vialism, arrived with a number of other people onto this continent, founded Dema. And then those, Clancy becomes a bishop. He brings some other bishops with him, and take this hope that they have, and they kind of present it to the people who came to Dema with them and founded Dema. Again, pure speculation. There's no real indication of this. There's references of people arriving at Dema and hope being presented to them by the bishops, but what that actually looks like, who knows? But in that sort of context, the bishops present this hope. It's like, oh, let us take charge. Let us lead this city that we've all arrived at together. We'll be the leaders because we have this vision in place that's going to be really good for us. And then they take whatever the religion of that community was and hijack it and turn it into vialism and institute this kind of control over everyone. Did the Banditos create the original religion before being banned from the city? Maybe. I don't know. I think the religion, the original religion, is something that kind of existed before Dema existed in the way that we know it. I think it's much older than a lot of that. All right. Moving on. We have a comment from Eustace from Spotify again. The dragon is called Trash. Could that be related to garbage? Oh no. We'll be right back in that case. All right, what I should have done was switch out the battery when I did our intermission earlier. So that's on me. But the quickly equestrian got here right at the wrong moment. The cycle is starting. Yes. Yeah, one of these days, the camera battery is gonna die, and I'm just gonna leave. No warning. I'm not gonna say anything. Camera battery dies. Stream keeps going for another 10 hours, but I'm just going. He knows too much. All right, let's start this over. So, the comment came in from Spotify from a fellow named Eustace. Have I answered your question yet? I assume not. This is the second one. Unless you left an anonymous question on Spotify about blurry face and stuff, then no. Eustace says, the dragon is called Trash. Could that be related to garbage from Breach? Also, Josh Dunn sang in Drum Show and Stressed Out on tour. Do you think he will continue to at least occasionally sing? In answer to that second question, yes, I do. I think they're incorporating him singing in these performances more and more. Obviously, in the Clancy tour, he was doing Paladin Street Bandito mashup as well, and I think he did some stuff in Stressed Out with that one. Certainly, the movie had plenty of jokels, as we call them. So yes, short answer to that second question, yes. Could the dragon Trash be related to the song Garbage? Maybe. My inclination would be to say no, simply given that the fact that I don't think Garbage really relates to the lore all that much. And Trash, from my understanding, and if my memory serves me correctly, is a name related to a sort of in-universe name for vultures being called trash dragons, and then bringing that name and that imagery to life in a dragon, then kind of naming the dragon trash because vultures are called trash dragons, if that makes sense. And then the other live stream starts. Exactly. Yeah. Definitely, the stream definitely won't be taken down if I just start broadcasting the full live stream of Scaled and Icy. Your fans are clickies. We look for stuff before we even know it's supposed to be hidden. Very true. Very true. But yeah. So I think in short, no. Like, could it be related? Yeah, maybe. I just don't actually think the themes between those two songs, or not songs, between the song Garbage, the themes of that song, and the character of Trash really line up all that much. All right. Next, we have hang on, what? I don't think the most recent re-upload is still up. Oh, for the Scaled and Icy live stream. Yeah. Next up, we have a comment from NDR4432. For Perligo, do you think that Blurryface named himself that way because the last thing he saw when he was Clancy, or the equivalent to Clancy in his time, was a blurry face? In City Walls, the shot after Clancy getting stabbed is Nico's face being blurry from Clancy's POV. That might be what the previous hero saw too, and it made him name himself Blurryface when he eventually became a bishop. I actually really like this theory. I don't know that there's a ton of like hard evidence for it. I don't know that there's really any indication in anything that this is the case beyond that shot in City Walls, but I think it's actually a really interesting idea and a really interesting theory. And I think, I think it's a possibility. Again, it's one of those things where it's like the history of Dema. We can only really speculate on it. We can't know for sure because it isn't like a clue that's waiting to be solved, because there isn't something to be solved for something like this. But I do really like that idea. I think it's really it's certainly, that figure of Blurryface has always kind of blurred his face. He's always had a blurry face from everywhere that we've seen him, with that veil in front of his face blurring it. And so could it be that he sort of, that the Clancy that became Nico, who called himself Blurryface, died in similar fashion to the Clancy that we see in the final cycle? And so he as he was fading away, he sees that blurry face of Nico, and then he adopts that name almost as an intimidation tactic to, and incorporates it into what the rest of the bishops wear. They all wear these blurry veils over their faces as well. But the new bishops at the end of City Walls don't. Clancy doesn't put that veil over his face. He just puts the hood on. And we don't really see the faces of the other bishops that are joining him. But it doesn't seem like they have those veils on. And so it could be that look and that idea is something that is very specific to the blurry face regime. And so he sort of, like, as he died and became Nico or whatever and was corrupted, he saw that vision of a blurry face, and thinking back on it once he was a bishop, he was like, oh, that could be a really intimidating, foreboding sort of image to present to the citizens that I want to keep subdued. So I think this is an interesting idea. Yeah. I'm going to perform downstairs at my local restaurant in my town. I'm excited. That's awesome. That's very cool. Good luck. I hope that goes well. Are you playing just one song, or are you playing multiple 21 Pilots songs, or is that sort of in a set list of other songs, whether 21 Pilots or not? Next up, we have a comment from FINXNV1975 or 1975. To me, the empty set symbol represents a void with infinite possibilities, which to me defines creativity, creating, which will then indicate that there is a solution. Within the void of infinite possibilities, this is why the story's not over. Like you say, they are done telling their part. The rest is up to us. I pulled this out to talk about mainly because I thought it was an interesting sort of counter interpretation, in a sense, I suppose in a way, of the empty set symbol and sort of what that represents, as opposed to it just being something that's null and void, but it being a symbol that represents this idea of infinite possibilities, of a number of, or infinite number of possible endings to this story. And how, while he might fail time and time again, at some point he will succeed, just as a matter of probability or whatever, just as a matter of, given how many possibilities there are to the ending, at some point you have to hit on a successful one. I don't know that this is necessarily the most hopeful interpretation. I think there's a sense in which it seems like there's a desire to have it be a hopeful interpretation of the empty set symbol. But certainly the possibility that Clancy could be stuck in this cycle, stuck trying to break free of this cycle to a near infinite extent, doesn't seem very hopeful or very promising for his future. But I think this is certainly an interesting and somewhat fresh way to look at the empty set symbol, given, well, it's just different. It's a different perspective on this idea that's been a question for a number of episodes of Perligo Ponders, about what the empty set symbol really represents within the lore and the story, because it's such a prominent symbol in many ways, and certainly it's a prominent symbol for the Bourbaki group, who has an influence on the lore, as we know. Next, we have this comment from Rob Del Tony. I feel like we've had other comments from this guy. Thanks. There we go. Thanks for the feature. But even beyond the last one, I think there have been multiple, more than one. To clarify, my theory is based on the assumption that for the foreseeable future, the cycle isn't broken, which also implies that Nico was once a Clancy before succumbing to the way of the bishops and becoming one himself. That's not to say the cycle will never be broken, but breaking the cycle isn't the point. The point is that in the midst of trying to break the cycle, there are two sides that the listener has to pick from. Are you going to side with Blurryface or Clancy? It actually sort of ties in with that last empty set symbol theory by Abby Weiss. Clearly a different empty set symbol theory to the one that we were just working on or looking at. There isn't a solution to breaking the cycle, but you can learn, grow, and do better each time the cycle starts again. Maybe one day the cycle will be broken, but until then, what's your choice? I hope that makes more sense. Feel free to include the follow-up in another Perligo Ponders if you feel so inclined. Yeah, so I think at the very least, this is an interesting bit of context to sort of what he was presenting before, which from my understanding was related to the ending of the All Flightless Birds and this idea that you have to kind of pick and choose between the two kind of representations of good and evil that are presented to us. We have Clancy representing the good, Nico representing the bad. It's time to pick your fight, right? And so his point here, which I think is actually a very good point, is that even if you are not going to break the cycle this time, or the next time, or the time after that, even if for a while you're going to be struggling to break free from this struggle and despair that you're stuck in, it's still very important to continue choosing the path of goodness, the right path, the good path, the true path, even when all hope seems to be lost, because you know that there's sort of a fundamental truth you're still gripping hold of, that is still the way to go, despite whatever despair might be facing you as well. Oh wow, we had looks like a pretty big super chat just came in. Just a donation? No message? Oh, that's awesome. Rex665. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. $21. That is crazy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Big shout out to Rex. It's a little bit of a learning curve, honestly. When I was showing the uke, I felt pretty confident. Nice. Glad you're learning to play the uke. But yeah, anyway, I'm kind of in disbelief that such a big donation came in without even a message. Did you mean to write a message? Are we missing something? But thank you so much. Really, I appreciate that. That means a lot. So, but anyway, all that is to say, I think, yeah, I think this is a really cool way of looking at it, and I think one that makes a lot of sense. That, you know, it's not just about winning, quote unquote, or losing. It's about enduring in a lot of ways. It's about holding true to the good, true, and beautiful, even when everything around you seems to be full of darkness. And it seems like the darkness is always going to prevail. You can't see that glimmer of hope anymore. But even so, despite that, you still choose to follow the good path. Just love the content, bro. Appreciate the commitment to the consistency as well. Well, thank you so much. That yeah, again, it means a lot. It's great to have you here in the chat, and thank you so much. I am honored and very, very grateful for that. So thank you very much. It's not a pass or fail, but a poisonous progression. Yeah. All right. Let's see. We have 2 more questions from this episode of Perligo Ponders. Next, we have a poet Y6C. Excuse me. You should watch Nils. What's that? Frankly, I think Drag Path is about death. Your struggles are there your entire life, and the only time they end is when you eventually die, when the devil comes to kill you. For a religious person, this is actually hopeful, because it means you're going to go rest with God. It is hopeful, but at the same time doesn't try to make the claim that your struggles are just going to go away. Interesting. Doesn't try to make the claim that your struggles are just going to go away. I'm not entirely sure what that last sentence means, but I do appreciate the kind of interpretation and the idea that Drag Path is describing death, or sort of like, with the idea being not that Clancy lost to death or lost to vialism by taking his own life in that context, but more that Drag Path is describing the end of this struggle that comes at the end of life. Sort of similar to the comment we were just looking at, where this idea is not necessarily that you're going to break the cycle or break free completely. This may be something you can constantly battle your entire life. And it's only really at the end of your life, after you've lived a full life to the fullest, to the best of your ability, choosing the good constantly as much as you can throughout your life, that you then get this final, I guess, rest, or the story. Your story is actually completed on your deathbed, kind of thing, in your dying days. I'm not going to say I'm like 100% behind it, but I do appreciate it. I think it's a good way of looking at that song, or at least a very interesting way, a very interesting interpretation. As Joseph writes, I think the cycle progressively getting closer and closer to being broken, as indicated on the pace of paint on Tyler's face going lower, could be a symbol of sanctification. Sure. That's certainly one way of looking at it that I think makes a lot of sense. So it's Nils, it's Dema Analog Horror. Okay. Does he play a lot of their music in it? Or is it like something else? Because I might pull it up and look at it after this. But again, if I don't really want to risk just playing their music. And then more questions this episode because some of them were a bit shorter, a bit quicker in length. But this is the final question of this episode from that Troll Juice 2. For Perligo Ponders, do you think the events of Skilled and Icy happened to Nico in his cycle? Or do you think a different series of events took place instead? This is the kind of question that I think there really is no way of answering, other than to say there's a very good chance that it did. Because what we see in the journal and the letters in so many ways doesn't line up with what we see visually, that it very much makes me wonder if the journal is not written by the Clancy we see in the final cycle and we follow through the music videos. The journal might be a collection of numerous previous Clancys, not just one, but it, at the very least, isn't the current Clancy. And so because of that would indicate that at least 2 Clancys have gone through that part of the cycle. And so the previous cycle, Clancy becoming Nico, is also going through that step, is also trapped in Dema, also creates Skeld and Icy, or a version of it in his own way. And then, because maybe he creates a musical performance for them, but it isn't quite Skeld and Icy, it's his own version of it, right? But something along those lines happens to multiple. I think that's a very real possibility. Again, can we know for sure? Not really, but I do think if we understand that the journals to be written by multiple Clancys, or at least different Clancys, to the one we see visually in the final cycle, or the final depicted cycle, not the one that completed the story and broke free, or anything like that, then that would indicate that it is. All right, well, with that being said, that brings us to the end of Perligo Ponders. Thank you for watching that segment. As always, if you'd like your own comment or question to be featured in the next episode, simply comment something below and feel free to flag it with the Perligo Ponders flair if you would like, but I don't just pull comments with that flair or that tag. And yeah. I think that was an interesting collection. Again, a number of shorter questions, but still working to get caught up for anyone who didn't see their question or comment included in that. It is not because I've ignored it completely. It's because I'm working through a backlog of these. So it is on the way, which I think might answer your question, clicking question. So, okay, first of all, I did not stream yesterday. I was planning to stream yesterday. I had to postpone to tonight. But I will answer your question either next time or the time after. I will answer your question at some point. If you think it's super timely, let me know, and I'll do it next time. If it's something that you don't think will be relevant in a couple of weeks. But at the very least, it'll happen at some point. Wow, another one. My goodness. Thank you so much. JLIL, JLil, 4949. Clancy's arc was pretty much laid out in a car towards to death. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Man, Joseph, you gotta come in and like ruin everything all the time. No, it was a good segment. I liked it. But thank you so much for that super chat. Yeah, that again, it means a lot. I'm always kind of floored that anyone ever donates these, but I always really appreciate it. My mind is fading a bit after 3 hours of streaming, so I do apologize that I'm not as cohesive as I would like. But luckily, we're kind of at the end of the stream now. But before we end, you can delete comments. You didn't know that? Before we end, there was... Well, let me pull up that Nils thing. Because, see, this is why I save things like this for the end, because now that I'm more tired and my brain's more fried, we can watch stuff and react to it instead of having to have intellect. I don't know. Man. See, it's moments like this that make me wonder why anyone would ever send a dono into the stream. This is what you're paying for. But, yeah, so I did schedule a stream for last night, and I did plan to do one. And then kind of an hour or two before I was going to go live, I had to postpone it to tonight. So I'm glad I was able to make it work for tonight. There was a moment where I was worried it was going to be a little bit longer than that. What was that Nils video that you said was good? Fault. But nothing serious. No real reason behind it other than just not having enough time. And yeah. You wish I hadn't sent one? No, I do not wish you had. That's not what I was saying at all. Thank you very much for sending that. No, I was just saying, like, I don't expect them, and I certainly don't feel like I deserve people's hard-earned money as donations. I'm very, very grateful for them, and it really means a lot. I really appreciate it. I'm very honored that you would. I'm blown away by it. That's all I was trying to say. You never felt the need to delete a comment before. That's a man who stands by his words as he writes them in a YouTube live chat. Well, thank you so much, Jayla. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm trying to find this Nils thing, and I don't think I'm finding the right thing. Because this looks like a song called Problems. Is it on YouTube or is it an Instagram thing? Am I looking in the wrong place? There was also... It was the Backrooms trailer. Is that right, Joseph? Backrooms movie trailer. YouTube. Can you would you mind putting a link in the community tab? Maybe I should search by channel. I'm just not seeing Nils. Search Dema analog horror. Okay. Analog horror. Nils. Oh, I see. Okay. The Dema tapes? Is that it? This guy only has like 293 subscribers. Is this the right guy? Okay. Alright. I heard there was a lunch eclipse today, but I didn't think it was at 6 a.m. I missed it. Oh. Yeah, I didn't even hear about that. All right. Is this the right thing? Nils. Is there one in particular I should look at first? Fault. Was it this one? Is this play? Either from A24 or King Pixel. Okay. I'll look at that next. Put it in the community tab. All right, awesome. Thank you. And there was something else you wanted me to look at as well. There's a different trailer or a game thing. Throw that in there too. So. We only want what's best for you. Oh, Lunar, not Lunch. And Dema? I don't think there's a Dema movie. But... So is this supposed to be like a collection of tapes being issued by the bishops? Or is it just a collection of like found footage? Wait, let me just search by most popular. What's this? Is this? Yeah, this is real. It's very creepy. It's propaganda from the bishops. Okay. Maybe we should just do a late night stream at like 3 a.m. sometime. Watch all of these. This is cool. I like this. That's a good concept. Oh, is this a music video? They're probably playing a song in that one. It's Ashes. Man. Instructional video. Post a comment on one of the videos. What do you want me to say exactly? I'm also not signed in on this. So I have to... You won't be able to watch me posting a comment. But hasn't Stolen Potential been posting this kind of stuff? Yeah, so he's been posting different... I think it's a different creator doing analog horror. But they're cool. Is there another one you wanted me to look at? One or two more? Let me, in the meantime, pull up this. Sorry if the mic's popping. Pull up this stuff from Joseph. Just give me 1 second. Backrooms and subliminal. Okay. Click Equestrian. Good luck with your midterms. Thank you for joining. There will be a VOD up and everything, so if you want to look at anything you missed. But always good to see you here. Hope those go well. Midterms in... Oh, I guess it is March. Man, it's March already. It's crazy. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. All right. In a bit of different content from the channel that talks about 21 Pilots, let's take a look at a movie trailer. Because why not? I mean, I like looking at movie trailers. So, I'm a little worried about copyright, but I can always just cut this out of the... Man, what's my hair doing, man? I can always just cut this out of the bot if I need to. So, Cease is good. Okay, well, let's look at Cease real quick before we launch into this. Yeah, it would be cool if 21 Pilots leaned into the analog horror a bit more.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
I haven't really thought about it. But whatever's next has to be
Glory worker. Without proper reception, no other part of your duties can be completed. Cease is the golden rule. CEASE. This is cool. This is cool. Look, here's what I'm gonna do. I think if whoever's a fan of this channel can go through and put together a collection of their best videos and other analog horror as well that you think is interesting, 21 Pilots related, but especially this channel, like their best videos, throw it on the community tab, and then maybe even as like a 3 a.m. stream at some point. I think that could be kind of fun, but I don't know if my life schedule would allow for that. But at some point, do like a late night stream, kind of just doing a deep dive into like a one-off, not to replace one of these normal streams, but just like kind of a one-off late night stream where we like dive into analog 21 Pilots, dema, analog horror. I think that could be a lot of fun. Haley, you can do that? Yeah, and other people chime in, with your favorites as well. It doesn't just have to be nils either if there's other creators doing a similar thing. But I think it could be cool to kind of just do a deep dive into a lot of this, and because it kind of seems like this is almost a story that he himself is telling within the world of dema, his own kind of narrative, which I think is cool. By the way, you should watch the original video from King Pixels on Backrooms. Found footage at some point. It's the video that really capitalized on the virality of the Backrooms and led to the movie. Okay, cool. I'll take a look at that at some point. All right. Backrooms trailer. I just got here. What is all this? So this is what happens when we've been streaming for 3 hours and decided to look at some random stuff as we finish up. We were just looking at some analog horror 21 Pilots style content from a YouTuber called Nils that some people recommended. And now we're looking at some movie trailers and game trailers. So, yeah. If you want some more formal content, I would recommend rewinding the stream. But no, this will be good. Again, I don't think I can just play this trailer all the way through for copyright reasons, but take a look at it.
I found something.
I have to say, maybe this is a hot take, a controversial opinion. Also, as I'm talking about this, feel free to let me know how audio volume is and everything. Maybe this is a hot take, but I find A24 movies to be very hit or miss. And sometimes they can be quite good, and sometimes they're just really, really weird and not it. So.
Okay. What did you find?
Found a place.
For the record, I know very little about the Backrooms. I know the concept of like those images of the Backrooms. I've seen things of that. I've seen people playing the Backrooms game, or a Backrooms game. I don't know if there's like an official one. So an image like this, unfortunately, I don't know. I suspect there's some kind of implication behind the fact that it's all sinking into the floor. Very cool, but forgive me if I don't quite latch on to all the different Easter eggs and stuff like that in here. Any movies other than the 21 Pilots one that you've been excited for? The Odyssey. Huge Christopher Nolan fan. Have some hesitations, some reservations about how good this one's going to be, but overall excited for that one. Audio's good. Thank you, Joseph. Also coming more immediately, sooner, Project Hail Mary interests me. It's a Ryan Gosling sort of science fiction space adventure film that looks really interesting, or it looks fairly interesting. It looks like it's got some good cinematography, interesting enough, compelling story. But it also is shot using very, very little CGI, which I think is very compelling. So.
It's massive in there.
It just goes on and on and on. All these rooms. This place builds them. Actually, more like it remembers them. And the more times it remembers something, the less it does.
The more time it remembers something, the less it does. Interesting. Got an ad for Hail Mary at the 12 Pilots movie. I did too. Yeah. You would absolutely love the Backroom series from Kane Pixels. Well, I'll have to start looking into that then. Yeah. Ever seen Mr. Robot? No, but that I've been very interested to watch it, especially because, like you said, a number of people have pointed out parallels between that and the Twin Pods lore. Can't wait to see the Odyssey's 4K Blu-ray and the IMAX features on the disc, because that's a no-brainer. I'll pick that up, especially because the entire thing is shot in IMAX. Nice. Coming out in May. I'm just gonna rewatch this last part. I feel like I missed something.
Actually, more like it remembers them. All these rooms. This place builds them. Actually, more like it remembers them. And the more times it remembers something, the less it does.
Well, it's very interesting. Trying to piece together exactly what he's saying there. But yeah, no, this looks really cool. I'm not like a huge horror appreciator. I often don't go to see horror movies in the theaters. It depends on what kind of horror, I suppose. But this seems like a cool thing to go with, like a friend to go see. For context, the more times it remembers something, the less it does. It's supposed to explain the segmented and distorted nature of the backrooms. Okay. Something about it has a memory. Right. So it's almost like the backrooms themselves kind of have a life. Like there's something almost animate about it. So hyped for this movie. Yeah, this looks really cool. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Joseph. And then, okay, so this is a game trailer. Is that correct? Subliminal. Trying to remember the real world, but the further out you go from where its expansion began, the harder the real place has reconstructing the place has reconstructing the real world. Okay, I see. That's cool. Me and 5 friends who saw Scream 7 last Friday in IMAX all agreed to go see the back rooms with me, and I'm so excited. Awesome. All right, what is this? This I actually haven't really heard about at all, so I'm going into this completely blind.
No, this can't be right.
I'm getting the feeling that Joseph is kind of a fan of horror stuff. Don't know why. But.
We have so much more ahead of us. How did you get here? Every mistake, every misdirection, every distraction you've entertained,
Now that I think about it, I feel like I have seen some kind of gameplay of this before. I definitely haven't played it, but hello just got here. Man, the people just joining stream right now are gotta be so confused. The demo for this game makes my computer start freaking out like crazy. Uh-oh.
fixed it all! Why do you insist on defying me?
So, okay, this is a game trailer, right? Not a film or show, right? This is all just for a game that's about to be released. Is that correct?
Looks like you've left something on the floor.
I mean, looks like a well-made game. I'm gonna be honest, this isn't really my type of video game, but I'm a fan of uncanny horror. Okay, sure, yeah. I find that a lot. I find a lot of that very interesting. I don't know that I consume a ton of content like that. Again, like, I think a game like this is interesting. I don't know that I would ever play it. But yeah, that's cool. Anything else anyone wants to share? Can look at. But no, thanks Joseph for flagging those. That was fun. This goes for all of you. If there are ever movie trailers that you want to look at, just let me know. I'm always happy to watch movie trailers. So, the demo got pretty popular for some time online. Okay, so I might have seen gameplay or something from that. Yeah, I've probably seen a glimpse. Yeah, hyped for like 3 or 4 years. This has been publicized by streamers a lot. Okay, fair enough. It's a game, yeah. Putting a playlist in the community tab. Awesome. So for anyone who just joined, stream's about to end. We're at the end of stream. But it kind of just turned into a media share kind of thing where, I don't know, there's just a couple things people wanted me to look at. That was fun. Not for everyone. Yeah, I mean, that's fine though. Like, I think it looks interesting and well made and compelling. It's just not necessarily what I would go for. It's not my go-to, let's say. I don't play enough video games to really branch out beyond go-tos. But anyway, with that being said, that brings us to the end of a 3-hour plus stream. Thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you to all of you for sticking around this long. And yeah, this was a good stream. Covered a lot, talked through a lot. Good Perligo Ponder segment. And yeah, right now I think I most likely won't be live. There was a moment where I was considering being live 2 weeks in a row and then taking a gap again, as opposed to every other week. I think I won't be live next week, but I'll be live the week after. The main reason I was thinking, this was another thing, the main reason I was thinking that I might go live sooner than expected next week is because I want to talk through the results of the polling competition, and I just didn't have time to prep all of that before this stream, because I want to do an in-depth look at the results beyond just the top 10 to really dive into, okay, recency bias, did that take place, what was going on there. So but even a couple weeks out, I think it still makes sense to do that. I think I'm still interested. I'm gonna do it. So, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, once again, thank you all for being here. I do think if we're gonna do streams longer than 3 hours, there needs to be a good amount of just reaction content as part of it. Breach swept. Yeah, it did, but it's also like when we actually break down the numbers by album, I'd be curious to know kind of how everything falls, because I was surprised by it last year when it seemed like Clancy had swept, and it wasn't quite as definitive as that. But with that being said, have a good night. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting the channel, as you do. And I look forward to, full wishes for More Than We Ever Imagined on physical release. Got to keep hoping for that. And look forward to seeing you in the next stream. Love your videos. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. It means a lot. Have a good night.